Keep your wellness routine going strong all summer. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition wherever you are, with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and more. Simplify your daily ritual. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
That I'm not the biggest fan of ABBA, but how can you resist the opportunity to begin a show?
When maintaining your daily wellness rituals is important to you, the change in routine during the summer can feel daunting. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual, even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and much more. So you'll be fueled and ready for wherever life or your summer adventures take you. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. But you can try it for yourself because the variety pack includes all 6 delicious fan favorites: chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai, and strawberry. So instead of worrying about sticking to your daily ritual, simplify it with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
With the song that really is us. That, of course, is Waterloo. It was on this day in 1974 that ABBA's second album by that name, Waterloo, entered the UK chart for the first time. It peaked at number 28. The title track,
When maintaining your daily wellness rituals is important to you, the change in routine during the summer can feel daunting. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual, even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and much more. So you'll be fueled and ready for wherever life or your summer adventures take you. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. But you can try it for yourself because the variety pack includes all 6 delicious fan favorites: chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai, and strawberry. So instead of worrying about sticking to your daily ritual, simplify it with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
Waterloo, the song you just heard, won ABBA the Eurovision Song Contest back in 1974. On this day, 52 years ago, Waterloo, the album by ABBA, enters the UK chart. You know, that was just 1 year after.
When maintaining your daily wellness rituals is important to you, the change in routine during the summer can feel daunting. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual, even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and much more. So you'll be fueled and ready for wherever life or your summer adventures take you. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. But you can try it for yourself because the variety pack includes all 6 delicious fan favorites: chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai and strawberry. So instead of worrying about sticking to your daily ritual, simplify it with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
Wasn't it? 73 is when we became a regional municipality of Waterloo. Pretty sure that's the way the history works. Hey, good Monday morning. It is the 15th of June. Thank you very much for stopping by, spending some of your time with us. As you know, our phones open to you every day the minute the clock strikes 9, because this is the most interactive radio program you'll find anywhere in the region. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Much to talk about, as I always feel as though there is on a Monday morning, right? We've been away from one another for a couple of days now. Lots happens over the weekend. I think we have plenty to catch up on. Lots of things I want to talk about, from the Farwell for Hire campaign over the weekend and what's coming up this week. And we will get to all of it in due time. After all, we are here together for 4 hours, but it's difficult, I think anyway, to start this day in any other way than reflecting on the awful tragedy in Mapleton Township on the weekend and the 5 children from Elmira who died in that terrible crash on or at the intersection of a couple of rural roads. I'll tell you, it really strikes close to the bone, because these are a couple of rural roads that I know well. It's one of my favorite areas to get out on my motorcycle, and it just so happens to be an area that I would travel on the way out to see my friends, the Israels, at 3 Gen Organics in Mapleton Township. So it is a tough one for us to wrap our heads around on a beautiful late spring evening when something like this would occur. Woolwich Township Mayor Sandy Shantz had the following to say to CBC on the weekend.
There's still a sense of shock and concern and worry for the well-being of the family and their friends.
No question about that. This is going to leave a long-lasting impact in the small and tight-knit community of Elmira, especially when you think of the ages of these children between 4 and 12. And then, of course, you have the other part of the story, if you will, this intersection where these two vehicles collide. It is a stop-signed intersection, if you'll allow that language to be used, but only one way. It's not a 4-way stop. And, you know, just looking at the area and knowing that those stop signs aren't exactly large. They do not have any flashing lights at the intersection. And one of the corners, I mean, you try to, I think it's human nature to try to piece some things together here and how something like this can happen when it's still daylight hours, etc. But the one corner of that intersection, if you know it well, Wellington Road 12, line 4, I believe is the road that we're talking about. I think I've got the numbers right there. But anyway, one of those corners has a red building right near the corner and some trees. So if you're approaching and you're coming to that stop sign, you would not see the cross traffic coming from your left, if you will, where that building and the tree line is. You're obscured. And who knows what else may have been happening. But there are imperfections, to say the very least, at the intersection. And wouldn't you know, in a tragic coincidence, really, the OPP in West Region, as of today, is launching a Stop, Look, Listen road safety campaign for drivers who are often on rural roads.
The focus is on public education and traffic enforcement as it relates to intersections, making sure that members of the motoring public, our drivers, are stopping if it's a stop sign or a traffic light, and that certainly it comes to a complete stop and look both ways before continuing through or into the intersection. Given the nature of this particular collision, it seems obvious that somebody missed a stop sign somewhere. And when you just
do the math, as I'm fond of doing, and you think of the numbers involved. You have 5 children killed in this, and then 4 adults and an infant survive. So that's 10 people in one vehicle. And I don't know about you, but I don't know any vehicle that provides that number of seatbelts, 10 in one vehicle. So there is still information to be uncovered as the investigation is underway. But again, it's difficult to begin a day like today after a weekend like it was with anything other than thoughts to the families affected in the entire community of Elmira, where this family lives. And the, again, far-reaching impacts of that many people's lives lost in one fell swoop on our rural roads. We'll be hearing more about that OPP safety blitz for rural intersections, and it is a stark reminder of the responsibility we have when we are behind the wheel of a vehicle and paying the very most of attention at all times. We'll wait for the investigation to play itself out, but that is just a tough news to digest over a weekend, and a tough way for us to start our show on a Monday morning.
1, 2, 3, 4. Can I have a little more? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I love you.
All right, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 15th of June. Number 1, construction on a new roundabout on Roseville Road is set to start this week, because you know what this region needs, right, is more roundabouts. The intersection of Roseville Road and Edworthy Side Road in North Dumfries, just west of Cambridge, set to be transformed this summer. The new roundabout also comes with improved lighting, asphalt replacement, and sewer, curb, and gutter installation. Number 2, the developer of a 130 townhome project in the south end of Cambridge is asking for a zoning amendment. The amendment would reduce setbacks for some backyards, balconies, and porches in the development, which is slated for the Atwater Drive and Dundas Street South area. The proposal calls for 63 townhouse units on the Dundas Street property and 69 more on the Atwater Drive site. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the city of Guelph is moving forward with a renoviction bylaw and a vacant home tax. Now, the tax is meant to encourage residential property owners to keep homes occupied, and it will be applied to a home that sits vacant for more than half the calendar year, with the tax rate being 4% of the property's current value assessment. The renoviction bylaw requires landlords to prove renovations require vacancy while ensuring tenants receive clear and consistent information about their rights. Both the vacant home tax and the renoviction bylaw in Guelph will come into effect later this summer. Number 4, Prime Minister Mark Carney heads to France today for the G7 summit. He is set to meet with the President of the European Council as well as the head of the European Commission before attending a working dinner on geopolitical and economic issues. U.S. President Donald Trump is also expected to attend this year's summit, which comes one day after he announced an agreement had been reached to end the conflict in Iran. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this Monday morning, the 15th of June, the Carolina Hurricanes have done it again.
Net still empty for Vegas. And now here's a turnover. A chance for Ehlers. Bingo! 3-0 Carolina. And you can start to polish the Stanley Cup. The Canes right now are 68 seconds away from winning their second NHL title. 8 years ago, when Rod Brind'Amour was hired to be the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, he said the mission was to be the best team in the NHL. 5 seconds away. Played out, and the Carolina Hurricanes are the best team in the NHL. They won the 2026 Stanley Cup. It's yours, Carolina, and it's coming back to North Carolina. The Stanley Stanley Cup. We got a passenger on the plane tomorrow, and the Hurricanes are world champions.
Pinch me so I know this is real and just not the perfect dream.
Oh, it's real. And it's spectacular. A 3-0 win for the Carolina Hurricanes. Should I say Frederik Andersen, former Leaf, and the Carolina Hurricanes over Mitch Marner, former Leaf Mitch Marner, and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. The Hurricanes win the Cup in 6 games, their second in 20 years.
You go to the box, you feel shame.
And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 15th of June. I think I have told you before, it goes back to 1998. I remember the years based on where I was working at the time. And I had just started my job in Thunder Bay, having left Salmon Arm, British Columbia, to take a job in a newsroom in Thunder Bay. One of the best jobs I had in terms of the kinds of news stories we got to cover, and the news director, Vic Krasowski was his name, terrific guy, learned a ton from him. Anyway, I was there. I remember this vividly. It was the end of another NHL season, another disappointing season for me, the Leafs fan. And I was walking to work at CKPR Radio in Thunder Bay. And I was walking because you work in radio, you don't have enough money for a car. You got 2 feet and a heartbeat. That's how you get around Thunder Bay when you're working there in 1998. Anyway, end of another disappointing NHL season for me as a Leafs fan. And I was walking to work and I was thinking to myself, like, why do I support this team? After all these years, this is almost 30 years ago I was thinking this about the Leafs. And, they had another disappointing season. They're not doing anything to show me that they care about anything other than bums and seats and blah, blah, blah. I said to myself, you know what? If the Leafs don't do something to show me that they actually care about winning, I'm gonna cheer for another team. And that team I'm going to cheer for is this relatively new team, the Carolina Hurricanes. I swear as the day is long. I had this conversation with myself on the way to work one day in Thunder Bay back in 1998. And Carolina had just joined us, an expansion team, obviously having, relocated from Hartford. But the Carolina Hurricanes were going to be my new team in 1998. And then I got to work that day, and across the newswire came the story that the Toronto Maple Leafs had signed free agent goaltender Curtis Joseph. And I thought, well, the Leafs are trying. They're showing that they care. So I stayed a Leafs fan. Almost 30 years ago, I could have given up on it. I was still a younger man in my 20s, having only endured 20 years of life plus as a Leafs fan. Not yet 30 years as a Leafs fan. Could have given up then. Could have joined the Carolina Hurricanes bandwagon, and I would have seen 2 Stanley Cups already. 2! Back in 2006 and again now in 2026. Instead, I am still a Leafs fan. 59 years it's been since the Leafs have won a cup. I've been alive for almost 55 of them, and I'm still hoping. Will they win one before I die? I could have had 2 if I flipped the Hurricanes in 1998, but gosh darn it, I was loyal, I suppose. Your morning wake-up call is coming up. Either you can make it or I will. It's the Mike Farwell Show for a Monday morning on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is time for your morning wake-up call here on the program. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Our good friend George in Cambridge. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you. I don't know if you remember, shortly after that, 1998, the Leafs had a good, decent run the playoffs. In 2002, they played the Carolina Hurricanes, and they had a decent run, but they were stopped by Carolina. I'm not sure if you remember that year.
Oh, I do, George. It was one of the last really good years for the Toronto Maple Leafs, as I recall.
Yes. And if I remember, they went on to play Detroit, Carolina, and they lost. Is that what happened?
I think that's the way it went, because the Leafs got as far as the Final Four. And that's another one of the frustrations, of course, as a Leafs fan, George. Yeah. Not only have we not won the Cup, we haven't even been in the final since 1967.
That's right. That's a tough one. I remember that year well because we were having our first child, and he actually came to the hospital when my daughter was born. He was a Cambridge native. I can't remember his name now. And he did a round around the hospital, and I was hoping to get a picture with him, with my newborn daughter, but I didn't get a chance. It might have been Multi, but I'm not sure if that's who it was.
There you go. Well, that would fit the Cambridge native for sure.
Sure, yeah.
Yep. Thanks, George. Good to hear from you this morning. Nice memories there. Russell sends an email to Mike at 570news.com, says, I've been a fan of the Hurricanes since they last won it in 2006, and they sent a picture of the Stanley Cup on their Olympia ice resurfacing machine made by Resurf Ice right there in Elmira. Love to hear it. A good old ice resurfacing machine made right here in the region of Waterloo. Jason is with us on the phones. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Mike. Well, they would have made a final. Actually, they would have made a final back in '93 if Kerry Fraser would have called that high stick on Doug. Was that Game 6? I think
it was Game 6. That's right. Wayne Gretzky should have been kicked out of that game instead of scoring the overtime winner. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. The thing, I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I remember that game. I was going to ask you, what comes first? All day two-way go, Highway 7 expansion, or the Leafs win the Stanley Cup? Which one do you think you see first in your lifetime?
That is a great question. I'm going to go with all day two-way go, Jay. It's not going to be Highway 7. It's not going to be the Leafs winning a Stanley Cup.
All right. I'll put you on that one. Have a great day, Mike.
Thanks, Jason. You too. Oh, you got to love tying in the sports drought to the long-standing issues we have here in the region of Waterloo. I cannot for the life of me figure out why we have not figured out all-day two-way GO train service between this region and the Greater Toronto area. And I mean frequent, reliable, efficient, if not fast service between those two markets. It utterly blows my mind how long it takes us to get things done around here. But a Leafs Stanley Cup, it feels like a long-distance dream. And if you were following sports over the weekend, then, of course, you saw the New York Knicks win their first championship in more than 50 years. I saw on Sportsnet Central, they put up a graphic of the longest droughts between championships. The Chicago Cubs led the way because it had been more than 100 years for them. But the Leafs don't even make it onto that list because they haven't won. They're at 59 years, which I think put them just after the Philadelphia Eagles, which went 57 years between, something like that. But you might have been wondering, why aren't the Leafs on there? Well, because they haven't won. So every year is another year added on to it. Next year will be 60. The year after that will be 61. Heaven help us if we are Leafs fans. Jason is with us on the phone this morning. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Mikey.
What's on your mind?
You know, we're talking about the big club here, but I think a lot of people are forgetting that the baby Leafs are doing quite well this season.
That's true. They're up 2-0 in the Calder Cup final. Let's go, you baby Leaf Marlies.
You know, I'm not much of a Callan fan, but hey, at least he's somewhere where he might have a shot at winning a championship.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, when's the last time the Marlies won a Calder Cup? It's been recent enough, hasn't it? Like, I don't know why the AHL team can win, but the NHL team cannot, Jason.
Well, I've always said you should move the baby club up to the big league and bring the big league down, and, you know, I think you might see a championship in Toronto.
You just might. All right, appreciate the call, Jay. Good to hear from you this morning. I'm trying to Google and talk at the same time. But, like, when's the last time? I feel like it wasn't all that long ago when the Toronto Marlies won the Calder Cup. I don't know. Let's just see. They made the advance to the Calder Cup finals. Let me see. Championships. 2015-16 and 2017-18. Calder Cups won in 2018. So there you go. I did not misremember. Explain to me how the Toronto Maple Leafs farm team, the American League team, can win, but they can't bring those same guys up and win in the National Hockey League. It's one of those things that will continue to confuse and confound. I want to say a couple of very special good mornings today. First one goes out to Kate, who I met on Friday afternoon after leaving the show. I was a part of a panel discussion about the glory days of fastball in this community. And you can't talk about the glory days of fastball in this community without talking about the late Glenn Mazer, who passed away earlier this year. But we all got together at the Navy Club in Waterloo, shared some stories about those glory days of fastball. It was a wonderful afternoon, a wonderful tribute to Glenn. And as I was leaving to get to another Farwell for Hire event, Kate ran and tracked me down and took the moment to express how much she enjoyed the show. And what I loved about it the most, I mean, who doesn't want to hear something like that, right? You enjoy what we do here, love you for that. But Kate said, when you first started this show, I wasn't so sure about you. I didn't think I liked it much at all, but she's really come around. It's like I'm like an acquired taste, I guess. But Kate had nothing but great things to say, and I'm glad she stuck with it in the early days to find something that she likes. And I don't know, maybe I'm different than I was 9 years ago when we started this, but Kate, I really appreciated it. And then after chatting with Kate and being at the Navy Club, I had a chance to visit with a good fellow by the name of Ron Zamia. And Ron and I, it turns out, a couple of former North Warders in this town. We had a coffee together on Friday afternoon and chatted about the old days, Sacred Heart School, the old North Ward memories, the train tracks over on Wilhelm where we'd leave coins or pebbles to be crushed by the passing train. Talked about some of the places, the old haunts in town, like the old Evergreen Motel and the Palladium in downtown Kitchener. And Ron and I could have been relatives, but there's another fella who I found out is a big fan and loyal follower of the show, and we had so much in common. I could have talked to him all weekend. So, Ron, thank you to you as well for sharing those memories. A great chat on Friday afternoon, supporting our Farwell for Hire fundraiser, of course, and being an all-around good former North Warder. It's very much appreciated. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about those sports facilities we have here in the region, or those sports facilities we don't have here in the region. That's coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Keep your wellness routine going strong all summer. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition wherever you are, with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and more. Simplify your daily ritual. Go to Kachava.com and use code HEALTH for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code HEALTH.
Well, it's something that coincidentally came up on the show recently, and I made the appeal again, or at least asked the question, do we have enough sports facilities or recreation facilities in this community to support our athletes, and maybe even beyond that, just to offer us the opportunity to engage in more recreational pursuits? I'm thinking about things like running tracks. We used to have one that we used regularly at Centennial Stadium in Kitchener, which is no longer. What about swimming pools? And in particular, pools large enough to train some of the best swimmers that our community might develop. Do we have facilities like this enough to support all of the athletes who live here today or who may be the athletes of our future? I asked the question about a week ago on the show, and wouldn't you know, a letter to the editor appeared not long after in our Waterloo Region Record, and it's written by somebody that would have a better eye on this than I would, and that is the former athletic director at Wilfrid Laurier University. Our good friend Peter Baxter joins the show this morning. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
If I were to ask you the question, do we have enough in the way of these types of facilities, how would you answer?
No, we don't. We don't have, and we've actually gone backwards. I think in 2012 when Centennial Stadium was lost, that was a big hit to young people in the community and of all ages, because that was really a hub of social infrastructure for not just sport and recreation, but they used to have Blue Rodeo concerts there. They had the Ontario agricultural exhibition for Central Ontario there. There's a lot of things that we miss. And, I know that the Waterloo Region Community Foundation just came out with vital signs, and we don't have facilities that in sport, recreation, culture, events, and so forth that bring people together in a sense of belonging. And, way back in the 80s when I worked for OFSA, we used to have OFSA track meets in there. So facilities like sport and recreation, cultural events, multi-purpose facilities, bring a lot of health benefits to the community, but really a sense of belonging. And I think social infrastructure is really needed in this community.
I mentioned at the outset, Peter, you would have a better eye on this than I would, not only through your work as the previous athletic director at Wilfrid Laurier University, but also through your travels over the years. What are you seeing in other communities that gives you an indication that we may well be behind here in the region?
Well, we're behind. Like, I just came back from BC cycling, my annual cycling trip with Bill McTeer, who used to be the chair of physical activity or physical education and kinesiology at Laurier. And Kamloops is called the tournament capital of Canada, and it has probably more ball diamonds and other sport facilities, recreation facilities at a population of 7,500 than we do at 750,000 people in the Waterloo region. And, I think, Vernon, BC has an 8-lane track, Kamloops, Langley, all those areas that I visited in BC has it, but we don't.
What are we missing in the community by not having facilities like this?
A sense of belonging. And I think it really speaks to that in terms of the Vital Signs report. And I really suggest that people go on the Waterloo Community Foundation website and read that report, that we have to have that. I'm volunteering with the Kitchener-Waterloo Sports Council on their facilities committee. And, the track people, for instance, they can only use Resurrection track now. St. David's track is past due in terms of being replaced. The Board of Education, they're given money to build facilities from the Ontario government, but they're not given money to maintain it. And it's also a community asset because municipal community groups use those tracks. And so it's a municipal responsibility, but all the municipalities in Waterloo region are hard pressed with a lot of with creating new facilities here, and with housing and our population growth going to be about 1 million. We should have those types of facilities where people interact and have a sense of belonging. It really helps. We've been successful in attracting good talent to our community, but we can't continue that success unless we have the facilities as we grow. The two universities too have grown. When I came to Laurier was 5,800 students. So the Waterloo campus is 19,000. I used to rent out a lot of our time in the gymnasium back in the late 90s, early 2000s to the community. But with the size of the population and the students paying for the operating costs, there's no time for community use. So we need facilities that will bring a sense of belonging, will be multi-purpose too. We can't just have sport and recreation facilities alone. We have to incorporate that and collaborate with the arts and cultural communities. On our committee, we've had representatives from the Indigenous community. They're running out of powwow space. And powwow space would be perfect for an outdoor stadium, as well as an indoor facility that would incorporate multi-purpose events.
You mentioned earlier, Peter, housing as an issue in the community as we grow towards a population of 1 million people. And of course, along with housing, there are the financial pressures that our municipalities are facing. So I'm sure that's the answer that we would most likely hear when we ask the question why we don't have these things or why plans aren't underway to create these things, because the financial burden right now is so great. How do we get there?
Well, we do have to plan. And, you hit the nail right there. I talked to, our sport minister, Neil Lumsden, and municipalities have to be shovel ready. So we need feasibility studies to at least have the opportunity to apply when governments, and the Ontario government has put out some monies to it. The federal government just put some more money into sport. But if we're a community that's not ready, then we're going to miss those opportunities for funding. And I think too that we have a very generous corporate community, and I think that public-private partnerships are go hand in hand. And if our corporations want talented people living and in the community with their families, we have to have that social infrastructure there. Not to mention that we have a lot of people from different parts of the world that come here, and diversity is the key. But we need these types of facilities where people interact and have social interaction and have a sense of belonging. And we're losing out on that right now, and I think we're behind in Waterloo Region.
Peter, I appreciate you raising the issue and making time for the show today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Michael, and all you do for the community.
It's my pleasure. We'll talk again soon, I hope.
Take care.
You too. Bye now. Peter Baxter is the former athletic director at Wilfrid Laurier University. He continues to be an avid cyclist, and on his recent annual cycling trip with a former colleague from Laurier, he's out in British Columbia, and he sees smaller communities like Kamloops and Vernon having access to greater recreational opportunities than our community, 3-4 times the size, has. I can speak anecdotally from my time in Kelowna, population about 140,000 people. And again, I had a pretty limited perspective insofar as the amount I traveled through the entire city. I did it mostly on foot, but the one trail that I talked to you about that I walked daily basically to get from the hotel down to the hockey arena, more than 5 kilometers. And it's a trail, but along that trail, so when I say it's a trail, you would expect these sorts of amenities to be nearby a trail. And sure as heck, they were. A soccer stadium, multiple baseball diamonds, etc. And the trail itself, very well used by runners, cyclists, and the like. I would say we do have a decent trail system here. Decent, for sure. But when it comes to the higher level or higher order facilities for people to run track, for people to play soccer, for people to go swimming, we do not any longer have anything in the way of Olympic-sized swimming pools. After Laurier's was decommissioned, we're out. I know Waterloo Mayor Dorothy McCabe has talked about bringing one back in the future, but that's a down the road, dare I say, pie in the sky kind of idea right now. She's got some support for it, but we've got to think longer term and look to the province or the feds for some grants. Remember, Centennial Stadium itself was so named because it came about in 1967 Canada's centennial year, and it was funded through a federal granting program. I know I'm being a little bit nostalgic when I think about those days at Centennial Stadium that you probably experienced too, right? When we were in school in this community, if we were of a certain vintage, we would have a track and field day at Centennial Stadium, where as a school, we would go over and run track and do shot put and all these other field events, whatever it was, because the stadium allowed for it. We could go to the stadium, and you heard Peter talk about the opportunity to see shows, watch other events, the Central Ontario exhibition, et cetera, et cetera. That sense of belonging is critical, and I don't think we have kept pace with our population. I know the new RBJ Schlegel Park in Kitchener is a huge asset for the community, but it's not delivering on the scale that we need it. Think about the Sportsplex in Cambridge, which when it finally opens and it's very near completion, again, is a great asset for Cambridge and the region as a whole. But just think of how long it has taken. We're talking from the very beginning of the idea is more than a decade. Some of the kids that could have been served by that multiplex in Cambridge, had it actually opened in any reasonable amount of time, they've already aged out of their best years for developing in a sport, be it swimming, whatever the case may be, basketball with the courts that'll be available. It takes us too ding-dang long to get stuff done, and we're frankly not doing enough of it to meet our population. Am I alone in this? Like, feel free to tell me I'm out of my mind here and there are far higher priorities. I understand that we have challenges, but if we don't, I think we're underserved now, and if we're adding another 30 to 40% to our population in the next 30 years, if we don't have amenities and outdoor space to keep pace with that growth, what kind of a place are we? Are we a place where people just come into and out of their condominium buildings and that's it? It's not a very vibrant place if we don't have these amenities. I'll let you know that there is also conversation happening right now, and this also might fall under the pie in the sky conversation, but there are discussions underway right now with the Northern Super League, Professional Women's Soccer League, to bring a professional women's soccer team to this region. Now, they need to find between $10 and $15 million in proof of funds to cover operations for the first several years, but the league is at least listening right now. Where would this professional women's soccer team play? I'm not certain. Bud Park? There are soccer pitches, or a soccer pitch anyway, at Centennial Stadium, but you're just going to sit on the sidelines there. Not like there's a grandstand for you. I don't know where the team would play, but there are conversations happening in hopes of bringing a professional women's soccer team to the region. Aren't these the sorts of amenities and activities that we should have available to us in a community of 700,000 today and 1 million in the next 30 years or so, 25 years from now? I would have to think the answer is yes, but why are we so far behind? What do you think? Do we have enough in the way of sports facilities and amenities in this community? Or are we lacking? Maybe your kids are going to Guelph to find that Olympic-sized swimming pool. Let me know your thoughts. Phone lines are always open to you for the conversation on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
We should have those types of facilities where people interact and have a sense of belonging. It really helped. We've been successful in attracting good talent to our community, but we can't continue that success unless we have the facilities as we grow.
Peter Baxter is the former athletic director at Wilfrid Laurier University. He had a letter to the editor in the Waterloo Region Record last week that really coincided with a conversation that I've been having with you here on the show about the lack of high-level sports facilities available to us here in the region. We once had them, Olympic-sized swimming pools, a high-quality, high-level running track. we don't have them anymore. And I worry a little bit that not only have we fallen behind, but we're not keeping up with an ever-growing population. I recognize that there are multiple competing priorities, but I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time here. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Clive sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. I agree if we can get a balance between corporate and individual partners to build these facilities, but the city taxpayers cannot be expected to build elite sports facilities for elite athletes. We need to build for the general taxpayer, not elite athletes. Our pockets are empty. The food bank is overworked, and we have an increasing homelessness problem. Elite sports facilities are not a priority. I get it, Clive, I do, but Joe and Jane Public can use an elite sports facility as well, and maybe we can generate a new generation of elite athletes. Maybe. I don't know. I just don't know why we don't put money into these sorts of things, which have myriad health benefits beyond just their existence as an amenity in the community. Let's go to the phones. Jim, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks. And you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
I think this, the lack of infrastructure around athletics in the region and city has been a product of a decade or more. Councillors have spoke of the low development fees, particularly the city of Kitchener has charged. Very frugal council with regards to spending, with low tax increases here, but also with low spending. So it's been a product of council's choices over the last decade or so. I get it, they're trying to strike a balance, but now at this point with the younger generation in the region, we've been able to rely on the schools and post-secondary schools with their funds towards athletics in the region, but it's time that the cities in the region here step up. We're losing sports tournaments to places with 4 pads and that are, somewhat privately owned already. It's time they open up the doors, and if they can't spend the money, let some investors come in and get this region back. Athletics is a forefront and a place you want to be to train your kids and yourself. So take care, Mike. Thanks for reaching out on the topic.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for weighing in on it. I really appreciate it. Let's get one more in before the update. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. When I played football at the University of Guelph, the Argos used to use our facilities as their practice facilities. So we do have the facilities around. It's just that there should be a public-private partnership. The facilities we already have are served by the internal infrastructure like transit and parking. So if we formed a public-private partnership in these areas, we could get the money and the development that's necessary to get our region up to speed.
Paul, I appreciate that thought. It kind of goes with what Clive was saying, right? Public-private partnerships. I'm here for it. I just think we have to recognize these for the investments that they are, for our overall well-being, and in Peter Baxter's words too, our sense of belonging in a community. We're behind, and some folks are sounding the alarms. I'm not sure those alarms are being heeded at all. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Keep your wellness routine going strong all summer. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition wherever you are, with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and more. Simplify your daily ritual. Go to Kachava.com and use code HEALTH for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code HEALTH.
Well, this story has surely caught the attention of anyone who knows anything about the history of Victoria Park in Kitchener. We once actually skated on what's known as the lake at Victoria Park. It's really a stormwater retention pond, an awfully big one, but nonetheless. We used to go out there on our skates and have fun in the winter, even played a little bit of shinny, not really an official game of hockey of any kind. We'd have sticks out there at the far end Anyway, we used to do that. The Boathouse, which, of course, is a restaurant with a great patio on the water now, used to be just that, a boathouse where you could rent out watercraft, non-motorized, of course, to be out on the water at Victoria Park. And so what a surprise it was a few weeks ago when we learned that taking your boat out on the water at Victoria Park was suddenly a no-no in the city of Kitchener. The man who discovered the change to the signage at Victoria Park and an avid outdoor enthusiast, Matt Morris, joins our show this morning. Matt, thanks for making the time. Good morning.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. So, as I mentioned, I know you are an avid outdoorsman, and you have long taken your homemade canoe down to the water at Victoria Park and gone out for a paddle. What changed?
Well, yeah, I've been doing this for 5 years. I've got 3 little different boats, and I ride down the Iron Horse Trail, and all of a sudden I got a note from a friend last Monday morning about 7 in the morning. It was a picture of the new sign with a whole bunch of banned activities, including all recreational boating. I'd heard a rumor of this and didn't believe it, but I guess it was becoming true. So I decided I was ready to act. I hopped on my bicycle, hooked up my canoe, put on my life jacket, rode down the Iron Horse Trail to see if it was true, and there was the sign. And so I've thought about this for many years, about not only my own use of the water, but getting the public back on the water as we used to, and with rentals and such. And I said, I've got to try and do something to highlight this issue. And so I took a picture, posted it up a few places like Reddit, and the reaction was very strong, including, I'll say, from the city. And some of our elected councillors and the mayor were unaware of the actual change in signage that had happened. And to their credit, they jumped on it. And by 3 p.m. the same day, a media release, I think you've seen it, a media release came out basically saying that they were going to look at that with the intent of returning boating to Victoria Park. So last Monday was a very busy day.
Indeed it was, and you show the power of social media. I would say the power of good in this regard for sure. So where do things stand from your perspective right now, Matt?
Well, as the press release stated, they've asked for a staff report by the end of June, which is, I guess, the end of next week. So that's a pretty quick turnaround. And they're hoping to figure out how to open it up safely and moving forward. As many know, we have a full new master plan for Victoria Park. There's lots of great things coming. And this sign change was actually a bit of a surprise to that planning process as well. But to get boating back on with the new master plan as well, like the future of Victoria Park could continue to be the jewel of the downtown core of Kitchener. And so we're hopeful that by the end of next week, boating can be reinstated.
Tell me about your experiences boating on the waters here in the urban areas. We've talked about Victoria Park. I know you've been to Silver Lake at Waterloo Park as well, but what do those experiences offer an outdoor enthusiast such as yourself?
It's funny, I've been doing this for over 5 years, and never once have I seen another boater. I do know there are other people that do occasionally boat, and basically canoe or kayak is usually the choice. But to think of going for a little paddle in the core of your own city is such an odd idea for many, and yet it's just a wonderful experience. I don't have to hop in a car and drive to Algonquin or somewhere for 4 hours and book a place and maybe avoid jet skis on a lake and such. I just hop on my bike, I ride down, I do a loop or two of the lake and ride home. I do that all in less than an hour. And some mornings down there, it might be busy and I bump into the regular people I see, and it's a very friendly community down there. Other times I'll go on a quite early in the morning when the sun's just coming up and the mist is on the water, and I'll say it's a magical experience right in the core of our city.
You mentioned that you don't often see, if ever, another boater in the 5 years that you've been doing this. But when you posted the issue of the new signage to Reddit and other platforms, the response you got shows that many of us appreciate at least the opportunity for this to happen. Besides the political response, Matt, what did you hear from folks when you let them know about this change to the rules at Victoria Park?
That's an important question, Mike, because that's at the core of where are we headed with this decision. And looking back at the history, I remember, I think it was 30 years ago, there was a long gondola with a long pole and all the rest that used to push people around the lake. And then more recently, as many know, we had rentals. Canoeing the Grand ran a great operation there that got knocked out during the COVID and other issues that were happening at the park at that time. But in speaking with the owner of that business, I guess it was a year or so ago now, they are still interested in doing something in Victoria Park. But back to the public reaction, the flood of people, not just on social media, but sending me messages separately talking about one gentleman had just bought a couple of kayaks for he and his son and was looking forward to it. And others who definitely are planning to use the lake. It's just a wonderful opportunity right in the core. Like we're sort of landlocked. We're not on the big lakes, and yet we do have these two wonderful lakes right in our core in Kitchener and Waterloo. And let's get back to, in Kitchener, for example, to what we had with rentals on the water. Let's remember what Stratford's doing with people canoeing in their beautiful waterway there, and rentals happening. And they figured it out, and it's a beautiful feature that really highlights and gives people another opportunity. Your previous segment talked about the lacking, athletic facilities and giving something for our growing population to enjoy. And isn't this a perfect fit for those goals?
It certainly is. And, it's not unique. It's unique maybe in this area, but I think of something like Central Park in Manhattan, just as an example of, a massive park area, but that offers such opportunities in the urban setting.
Yeah, Montreal has the same. Boston, many cities have figured out how to make it reasonable. And I just don't want to drop the ball and just let this drift away. Pardon the pun.
No, that was well said. I appreciate that very much. So from one Monday to the next, Matt, from your disappointment last Monday when the rumors that you had heard turned out to be true, you saw that new signage, and then the rather rapid response from the city. How are you feeling today? How confident are you that we will get to a resolution that supports boating to continue?
Well, like all these issues, nothing is ever over until it's over. And we want to keep helping the city understand where our motivations are. And I'm encouraging people to talk to their councillors and or the mayor and let it be known that if they do support the idea of the public boating on that body of water, let's encourage the process to make it happen. And I am very encouraged, and I do want to mention the new master plan for Victoria Park is wonderful, and it does such great next step activities to make that park even a better central piece of our community. And I definitely want to support the team that did all the work to produce that. And I think getting boating back would nest nicely with where we're heading with Victoria Park.
Matt, good on you for raising the issue in the manner that you did. I feel pretty good that this is going to have a positive resolution in the end. But thanks again for making time for the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for your interest, Mike. All the best.
All the best to you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Matt Morris is an avid outdoor enthusiast. He's also the guy that does those incredible snow sculptures in the winter. You may have seen him post online. We've had him on the show before to talk about that. He's incredibly creative and talented. And I will say that I love the way that he went about this issue. Instead of getting to the park and then posting and blasting the city and stomping his feet up and down and, making a huge deal out of it and calling out the city and city officials, etc., he simply posed the question, okay, here's the new signage. Why would this be? And how can we get it back to the way that it was? I love the manner in which Matt has gone about this. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I'm confident that this is going to have a positive resolution that will allow boating to continue in Victoria Park. But just before I get to that, I heard Matt make mention to Stratford and how it has embraced its waterways and allows folks to get out. I've done it in Guelph, for crying out loud, at Riverside Park. Riverside? Is that? Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting? Yeah, it's Riverside Park in Guelph, right? Anyway, I've done it in Guelph. You could rent a canoe and paddle boats and stuff like that right in the beautiful park in Guelph. So there you go. But Stratford, let's not forget, as much as it embraces its waterways for boating, the Stratford School Board still has to figure out why it's preventing a grade 7 student from going fishing on his lunch hour when he has permission to leave school property, right? So that permission was granted. So go ahead, leave school property. But, oh, by the way, there's some sort of liability if you take your fishing rod and go down to the Thames River and fish there. Come on with your coming on, Stratford School Board. Get that sorted out over there. Back to the point, though, here in Kitchener. And what a beautiful way to take full advantage of what our community has on offer, right? Look at all the work that Waterloo did around Silver Lake, where I know Matt has been because I follow him on social media and I've seen his travels. When he was prevented from getting on the water at Victoria Park, off he goes to Waterloo to take a paddle on Silver Lake there. And it's a beautiful area. And just imagine being out there on the water and the tranquility that comes with it, the exercise you're getting, taking full advantage of what's on offer, as he has done for many years at Victoria Park until the signage changed. Here's the thing. We have always, ever since I was a kid, and really it's just the easier language and the common language to refer to this as the lake at Victoria Park, which, sure, we can call it that. It's a big enough body of water, I suppose. It is also, though, technically, by definition, a stormwater retention pond. And you'll remember all the work that the city of Kitchener did not too long ago, dredging it to make the water look a little bit nicer, right? But it is a stormwater retention pond. And what I am almost certain, I have it on pretty good authority, what happened here was a changing of the signage at Victoria Park so that it matched all stormwater retention ponds across the city, which most are not to be used for boating, skating. Remember the problems we had with that years ago where, neighborhoods were using the stormwater retention ponds for skating and the dangers that posed, et cetera. So this is kind of a blanket policy for stormwater retention ponds in the city of Kitchener, and it was time to update the signage. And so Victoria Park, quote-unquote, lake, which is really a stormwater retention pond, got the same signage. What happened is the institutional knowledge within the institution that is the corporation of the city of Kitchener got lost. And whomever was signing all of these stormwater retention ponds and putting this, applying this blanket policy across the board, didn't realize the historic aspects of the quote-unquote lake at Victoria Park, how well used it has always been for recreational activities, including those boat rentals that Matt made reference to, the skating that I talked about before. Newer people, less institutional knowledge. Oh, this is a stormwater retention pond in our overall system in Kitchener. It gets the same signage as all of the other stormwater retention ponds. That's what I am fairly certain happened from sources within the city. And that's why I am confident that once this quote-unquote review is done, this will quickly be changed by the end of this month, and people will be using the lake or the stormwater retention pond for their recreational purposes again before too long. Victoria Park is kind of the exception to the stormwater retention pond rule in the city. So it was just a little bit of an error by somebody with less institutional knowledge, and we are going to get it sorted out. But credit to Matt Morris for bringing it to the city's attention and doing so in a genuine manner, asking to support whatever actions are necessary to get boating back. Instead of creating a big uproar and calling people names, we're going to go about this in a very adult fashion, and we're going to get it fixed. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. just a reminder that your Memorial Cup champion, Kitchener Rangers, were in Kingston over the weekend. No, it wasn't for a game with the Frontenacs. It was for the OHL draft, which was a live draft for the first time in a quarter century. It was spectacular, looked great. Good job, OHL. Don't go back to an online draft, please. Let's keep this live draft thing going. If you weren't following, the Rangers got Braden Riley with their first-round pick. 19th overall. You pick 19th out of 20 when you go all the way and win the Memorial Cup. And another interesting pick from the Kitchener Rangers, Nathan Pavelski, their 9th-round pick, 180th overall. Pavelski in hockey? Oh, yeah, that would be son of the legendary San Jose Shark, Joe Pavelski. So another name just to keep an ear on if you are a Kitchener Rangers fan. And, of course, the Guelph Storm in our listening area, next year's Memorial Cup hosts. I bring that up deliberately at 10:23 on this Monday morning.
Not everyone's a jackwagon. Not every heart is cold. Not every promise made to you is gonna turn to gold then fold. Some people mean it when they say they care. Some folks will show up, actually be there. So don't close the door on every soul you meet. Not everyone's a jackwagon on this street.
And you know who is not a jackwagon? A member of those 2027 Memorial Cup host, Guelph Storm. Defenseman Grant Spada in particular, because Spada has just announced his new initiative. Yeah, these are teenage hockey players, but it's going to be Spada Strong, an initiative launched by the Storm defensemen supporting those living with childhood cancer. Why is Grant Spada beginning this Spada Strong initiative? Because his mom fought cancer, and Spada is quoted as saying, "When everything around my mom said that she should be afraid, she chose faith. When the outcome was uncertain, she chose to believe in something better. She faced everything with courage, trust, and a mindset that refused to give up." So Spada Strong will raise money to be donated to McMaster Children's Hospital in Hamilton, which, of course, is one of this country's largest pediatric academic care teaching hospitals. And along with the monetary donations raised through Spada Strong, Grant Spada and the Guelph Storm will welcome pediatric patients to various home games at the Sleeman Center for the upcoming season as Spada's star of the game. So let's hear it for a young man playing for the Guelph Storm who knows that there are things greater than just the game of hockey. Grant Spada launches Spada Strong to raise funds and awareness for those living with childhood cancer. Just our daily reminder that, contrary to what you might think sometimes, not everyone is a jackwagon. And if you know somebody like Grant Spada or a story that reminds you that not everyone is a jackwagon, we are always open to hearing those ideas and suggestions. You can send me an email anytime to mike@570news.com, and maybe the story you share will be shared right here on our daily segment in and around 10:20 every day called Not Everyone is a Jackwagon. Coming up before 11, so in the next 30 minutes, it's the affordable art sale that you didn't know you needed, and you'll find it in the Art Attic. We'll tell you where that is before 11. Plus, did somebody say tacos? Oh, I sure did. Another Taco Fest is coming up. It's in support of an excellent organization in our community, and you'll learn more about that coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, our next guest joins us in studio, and we were just chatting during that update with Matt. 13 years. It's the 13th annual Taco Fest, and you know what I'm talking about when I say Taco Fest. It comes up this Friday. My in-studio guest is Will Pace, who's the executive director at Community Support Connections. That is the organization that benefits from this annual event. Will, great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be back again. Another year promoting Tacofest.
Absolutely. 13 years of this. And we were chatting again during that update with Matt, and I remember the sensation that this thing was when it first hit the scene, if you will, as a signature event in this region.
Yeah, it's really been a hallmark of the region. And I mean, I'm biased. I think it's the best event in the region. But I mean, who doesn't love gourmet tacos, craft beer, great location. It's at the Ken Sealing Museum. And as you mentioned, it's not just a great event. It supports Community Support Connections. And we work with 7,000 people across Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, and North Dumfries every year, mostly older adults, seniors, just to keep them living in their own homes with independence and dignity. So it's a win-win.
Let's talk about Community Support Connections, because I think it's important for folks to understand what they are supporting when they are out enjoying those gourmet tacos on Friday night, which we know they will be doing by the hundreds. But the work that you do with those 7,000 individuals across this region, allowing them that independence, how does Community Support Connections do the work that it does? What's that like?
Well, it's really about a whole health perspective. And when I say that, I mean so many people, especially older adults, are facing social isolation. You know, they're alone in their homes. They may not have family, and they may not even have friends. And so what we do is not just about building physical health. We have nutrition programs like our Meals on Wheels, hot meals delivered every year, over 100,000 meals every year that our commercial kitchen produces. We have grocery shopping programs, transportation, exercise. I mean, if you stop and think about any one thing as an older adult that might mean I just can't take care of myself in my own home, that's where we try to step in. So we run homemaking programs, right? Snow removal, yard work programs. Like, you know, I think people really focus on, you know, meals, transportation, and they should, because those are so important. But it can be any one of those small things that might make someone think, I just can't stay in my own home anymore. And that's where we want to step in and help them.
And you talk about that social isolation that can be a concern for some older adults. In some cases, this food delivery that may be happening may also be the only interaction that older adult gets with somebody every day.
Yeah, that's very true. And we hear that all the time. Most of our meals come from volunteer drivers, and many of them have been with us for years. They love the friendships and the relationships they build with the clients. But yeah, it's a heartbreaking story. A lot of our clients, you know, they wait by the door. The volunteer brings their meal, and they will say, you know, you're the only human being I've seen all week or spoken to all week. So like I said, it's not just about the meal. It's a much bigger health issue around social isolation, mental health, all of those pieces that come together to make a person happy in their own home.
So how do you generate the funding to continue doing the work that you do? Tacofest aside, I know that's a signature event and an important one, but the rest of the year, Will, how are you keeping the lights on and the wheels turning at Community Support Connections?
Well, you know, like so many community organizations, it's always a challenge. Part of our funding comes from the Ministry of Health, because they see us as a great investment to keep people in their homes, not going into the formal healthcare system, you know, the seniors care facilities, because that's hugely expensive, obviously. So they know we can keep people here in their own homes for a fraction of the dollar that those solutions provide. The rest of it comes from fundraising. Some of our programs have small client fees based on their income, like meals or transportation. But so it's really a suite of funding, but I mean, really, it's the community funding, you know, the fundraising, the donations. And I can't underestimate the volunteers, because I mean, these are people who otherwise we'd be paying, you know, another 20 or 30 full-time staff, which we just can't afford. So, you know, those 400 or 500 volunteers out there every year, maybe they're delivering meals. Some of them teach exercise classes. Some of them do friendly visiting. As I said, they just go to a person's home, sit down with them, have a cup of tea and talk. And all of those things add together to just make a better experience for everybody.
When it comes to volunteers, I wanted to ask about that, because I know how important they are to the work that you do. And we've talked, you know, in more general ways, broad strokes, about volunteerism from coast to coast in this country and how we're seeing a decline in some areas, particularly since COVID. How are you doing volunteer-wise at Community Support Connections?
We do well compared to a lot of places, so I don't like to complain, but I'm going to complain anyway. Because, yeah, there is just a cultural shift in volunteering. You know, and we've had people who have volunteered with us for 20 years, delivering meals, say, 3 days a week. And when they retire, we now have to go find 4 or 5 people to replace them because they don't want to do that same level, that intensity of volunteering. So, I mean, it's a struggle. But on the other hand, you know, when we do connect with people and they come out and they deliver a meal or they do an exercise class, then they fall in love with us. So I think it's just getting above all the background clutter. There's so many places that need volunteers. But when they come to Community Support Connections, they usually really fall in love with the clients most of all.
All right, let's get back to Tacofest. Again, coming up on Friday night at the Ken Sealing Museum on Homer Watson Boulevard in Kitchener. 13 years. Do you remember, Will, where the idea came from? Because we were saying when we were chatting off air, you know, if you find something that works, 13 years shows how sticky, if you will, that it is. But it's also different. It's not your average golf tournament. It's not your average gala. Where did the Tacofest idea come from?
Well, it was a really organic process where we went to our community, you know, our teams, our supporters, everybody, and we just started throwing ideas around and said, you know, what do you think would be a great idea? Like, you know, Mike, what would be a great idea for an event? And we took all of this feedback. And, you know, right there when we looked through it, at the top of the list was Tacofest, you know, and at that time there was no Tacofest. Now I think there's 5, all within an hour of, you know, KW. But we were the first. And I think, you know, that's a great sign that it was so popular. Now there's half a dozen more. But it was really going out to the community and saying, hey, what do you think would be a great idea? Because, you know, it's very easy to get in that mindset of, well, we know what will work. Well, we went to the community and said, what do you want? And we heard them loud and clear.
Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery.
I'm glad you said it rather than me. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what do we need to know about Tacofest on Friday evening?
Well, like you said, 6 p.m., Ken Sealing Museum this Friday. As I said, I think it's just the best event in the region. It is Tacofest. So this year we have 11 food vendors who are bringing in kitchen teams, chefs. They all compete for taco awards. So we have the top one that I always think about is the Golden Taco, and they take it home at the end of the year, you know, based on, we have a panel of celebrity review judges. We also have a People's Choice Award. So, you know, you as an attendee, you get to vote on what you think the best tacos are. And I mean, they really go all out on this because, you know, a good competition always builds a great taco. And in this case, you've got these amazing chefs and cooks, and they want to take that award home. So we're all the benefits of it, right? And because it's all you can eat for $75, people go in and, you know, like we were just joking before before we went on air, people will say, I didn't eat today. Because, you know, I'm planning to eat 25 or 30 tacos because it's an all-you-can-eat format. We have some amazing local craft brewers and other drink vendors, so you get drinks for $1, drink samples for $1. So, you know, really, people are walking around with like 4 tacos in one hand and 2 craft beers in the other. You know, in between the live music and the events, we've got salsa dancing and lessons, photo booths, all the great things that make a great event great. So, like I said, people just walk away loving it. And, you know, we've got people who've been coming for 13 years because it's in their calendar every year.
And having been to many of these in the past, Will, I can attest to those who will eat upwards of 24 or more tacos. And I think the competition that you talked about is really the secret sauce here that has made this such a success, because you get the taco vendors who are competing with one another for that coveted golden taco. So they come up with the most, like, things I would never have considered and I've been able to enjoy at this event. And then the attendees have a vested interest in it as well because they can vote on their favorite. And you can hear throughout the museum and the outdoor spaces at the Ken Sealing Museum, people talking about, well, what was your favorite? Where'd you get that? How do I do, et cetera? That's the secret to all of this, I think.
Yeah, it really is. And you nailed it. You hear this so often, you know, someone's having an amazing taco and then they watch somebody walk by and go, oh, okay, man, now I've got to try that one.
Right.
And the fact that it's all you can eat, I know that's one of the things that differentiates us. So, I mean, there are events out there, other taco-based events that, you know, maybe you pay $30 or $40 for a ticket, but then you get in and you're paying another $5 or $10 per taco. This is $75, all you can eat. And, you know, that's a mindset. Like I said, people come in, they come in to really go to town on these tacos.
How much do you tend to raise at this event every year?
For us, it's our biggest fundraiser. It's about $50,000 a year. Always, you know, depends on number of tickets and sponsors, but we've got a great list of sponsors who come out every year and support us. And of course, the 400 people every year who come out, buy those tickets. And sometimes it's just a couple of people. Sometimes we have groups coming out, corporate groups, birthdays, and we do have reduced ticket prices for groups, so 5 people or 10 people. So definitely go to our website at tacofest.ca. Look at the different ways you come out and have a great time.
All right. You answered the final question I had, which is how we get those tickets. So tacofest.ca is the way to do that. And again, Will knows of what he speaks here. I've seen these group outings, these corporate events. It's like a little team building thing on a Friday night. Go out and enjoy some food with your coworkers, some drinks, or just grab a group of friends and do it too.
That's it, exactly. You got it.
Keep up the great work, Will. Wish you a great Taco Fest on Friday, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. I know it's going to be great. Hope we'll see you there.
Will Pace joins us, Executive Director at Community Support Connections. We're raising money for them on Friday night, and what better way to do it at Taco Fest, okay? All you can eat tacos, some craft beer as well. Tickets, $75, all you can eat. Tacofest.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is your opportunity to get your hands on some affordable art in the city of Cambridge. And where do you go to get it? Well, the Art Attic, of course, and it will be opening for your shopping pleasure. A silent auction and expanded cash and carry options this year. It all gets underway on Thursday morning at 9. And joining us to talk more about it is the chair of the Cambridge Art Attic, Sharon Boyd, joins the show. Good morning, Sharon.
Morning, Mike.
What is the Art Attic?
Well, it's a fundraiser that we put on every year to support the Cambridge Centre for the Arts. And what we do is collect art from the public all year round, everything from posters to original paintings, framed or unframed. We have sculptures, we have pottery, we have just anything that you might call some form of art, jewelry even. And we collect it all year, and then for the next 3 days, we hang everything in the Cambridge Centre for the Arts. Almost every wall is covered with what we've collected. And starting, as you said, Thursday morning at 9 a.m., people can come in and purchase what we've collected.
So are you in the process of hanging all of that art as we speak?
We are, and you wouldn't believe what it looks like.
I can only imagine, because as you said, you're collecting this all through the year. It's all manner of art. This must be a massive undertaking, Sharon.
Well, it is, and it's all done by volunteers, and we are so appreciative of all the people that do help. And every year we say we can't do it, but every year it gets done. So it's worth coming to see, just to see the art. As I say, it covers almost every wall. It starts the cash and carry part. We have things as cheap as $1, or I even think some things are 50 cents, and then prices go up from there. And then the silent auction is whatever you bid, and that finishes Saturday at 1:00. You can bid until then, and you don't have to be there to get your winning for the silent auction. We will call you, and you can pick it up at your convenience.
So the silent auction will also be on display at the Cambridge Centre for the Arts, along with all of this art that's being hung as we speak on the walls.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And it all starts Thursday morning at 9, and it's not a short day, Sharon. It goes from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m., both Thursday and Friday?
Well, actually, Friday we usually go at the same time. There's the celebration of the arts going on outside the Cambridge Centre for the Arts. So we usually stay open sometimes till as late as 10 on Friday night.
And all of this is staffed by volunteers?
Everything is done by volunteers, and all of the money raised goes right back to the community to support, as I said, programs for the Arts Centre, and also we do support other programs in the city. People can come to us and ask for support for different projects they are doing, and we, if possible, can support them as well.
Any idea, Sharon, over the years, how much you've been able to raise through this annual event?
Well, I would say we've been doing it now. We're almost, I think, 15 years. And so I would say we're probably close to, we usually clear around 20,000 a year. So we're probably looking at $300,000 over the time that we've done it, that we've contributed back to the community.
That is absolutely incredible. So folks really, when they come to the Cambridge Center for the Arts, and that's on Dixon Street, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so Dixon Street, 60 Dixon to be exact, in Cambridge, starting Thursday morning, 9 a.m. And really, when we come in, Sharon, it'll be like coming into an art gallery where we can start just making our selections right then and there.
Right then and there. As I say, the cash and carry, that's what it means. You can pay and take it with you when you come. The silent auction, we have to leave that till Saturday at 1.
And that Saturday it runs from 9 until 1, right? So
that's right.
Okay, so Thursday morning at 9 a.m., runs till 8 p.m. Friday, again at 9, running, who knows, because the Festival of the Arts is happening, so you might be open a little later. Yeah. And then Saturday from 9 until 1, the Cambridge Art Attic, open for your shopping pleasure.
Exactly.
Sharon, keep up the great work. I love what you're doing, and I hope you sell everything off those walls.
And so do I. I don't want to hang it again next year.
That's right. That's the idea. All right. Thanks for being here, Sharon.
Thanks for calling, Mike.
All right. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
You as well. Bye.
Get back to hanging that stuff up, okay?
You bet.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sharon Boyd is the chair of the Cambridge Art Attic. They're working right now to get those walls ready for your viewing and purchasing pleasure starting on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. This all takes place at the Cambridge Center for the Arts, which is at 60 Dixon Street in Cambridge. $20,000 on average per year they've been raising by doing this. It's affordable art. Sharon said some of the pieces will be starting as low as 50 cents. So you're going to find something in there that absolutely catches your eye. And when you buy it, you are then supporting not just the Cambridge Center for the Arts, but the initiatives that they support for the arts in the community. So this is all part of the build-up to the Festival of the Arts in Cambridge on Friday night. But at the Center for the Arts, it gets underway Thursday morning, 9 a.m., the annual Art Attic. They collect these art pieces all year long, and then they're spending their days between now and Thursday getting everything ready so you can go in. Cash and carry. The silent auction closes on Saturday at 1. So make sure you stop by 60 Dixon Street in Cambridge. Support what these hardworking volunteers are doing, and in turn then see some support for the arts in our community. Speaking of things that raise money, I should take a moment just to remind you about our 50-50 raffle in support of Farwell for Hire. A couple of things to let you know about. First of all, the jackpot, almost $89,000, which means a take-home prize of almost $44,500. That's a pretty nice cash prize right off the hop. And then, of course, we're getting almost $44,500 for cystic fibrosis research, which is awesome. If that jackpot, though, reaches a take-home prize of $60,000 or $120,000 in the overall jackpot, I am going to do the reverse hot ones challenge on the show. Instead of being the person being interviewed eating increasingly hot chicken wings, I'm going to be doing the interviewing. I'm going to try to continue doing the show as my buddy from Ginger Goat Hot Sauce and our friends from Morty's Pub bring in the wings. And Ginger Goat will bring in the hot sauces, and I will continue to eat increasingly hot wings as I continue to try hosting the show. If the jackpot gets up to $120,000 or the take-home prize of $60,000. And if you get your tickets before this Friday at noon, it is, I don't think we should just call this a Kitchener Rangers VIP experience. It's a Memorial Cup Champions VIP experience. That is our early bird prize. If you get your tickets before Friday at noon, you'll get a tour of the Rangers' new dressing room. You'll get some signed merchandise. You'll get a meet and greet with the players, and you can join us in the broadcast booth for a Kitchener Rangers game next season, the defending Memorial Cup champs. And if you're into that sort of thing, we'll even put a headset on you and bring you onto the air with us. That is a Memorial Cup Champions VIP experience, early bird prize, if you get your tickets before Friday at noon. Get your tickets right now, cf5050.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
What's the matter with the clothes I'm wearing? Can't you tell that your tie's too wide? Maybe I should buy some old tab collars. Welcome back to the age of jive. Where have you been hiding out lately, honey? You can't dress trashy till you spend a lot of money. Everybody's talking about the new sound, funny, but it's still rock and roll to me.
Oh, one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite artists, but why? Oh, why would we be starting this week in music history this week with Billy Joel? Well, we'll find out, because our good friend and musicologist Brian Allison is here to guide us along this trip down a musical memory lane. We do this every Monday morning at 11. And don't forget, Brian's Facebook page has the same name, This Week in Music History. And there you will find the tidbits we discuss here on the show and lots more for your reading pleasure. We all love our music, and Brian is with us on the phone. As always, good morning, Brian.
Hi, Mike.
You know, I'm thinking, I just said you're with us on the phone. People love this segment. Like, I get a lot of feedback on this segment. We got to get you into the studio. So I've got an idea I'm going to throw at you before we sign off this morning, okay?
All right, I'm down.
Okay, I knew you would be. Let's get into it, though, because we're going to go a way back on This Week in Music History, almost 80 years. Are you kidding me? To this week in 1948, Brian.
Way back in history. So, yeah, it was This Week in Music History, June 18th, 1948, when Columbia Records revolutionized the music industry, and this is when they introduced the 33 1/3 RPM vinyl LP, which would basically change the way the world listened and sold music. So their first release on the new format was Felix Mendelssohn playing a violin concerto in E minor, conducted by Bruno Walter and performed by the Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra of New York. So that was the first ever LP pressing. Prior to this, of course, music was only available on 78 RPM shellacked records, which were fragile, didn't last very long, only could contain a certain amount of music. But this was great because a record was fans could conveniently enjoy an entire album on one disc. So it was a revolutionary thing going back all those years. And of course, the LP record remained the standard format for albums, probably until the late 70s when the cassette tape took over as a much more convenient and portable way to enjoy music. But then the CD, of course, came in the late 80s. But vinyl has, made a monster comeback since the mid-2000s. Sales of vinyl LPs have made a big comeback in terms of even eclipsing sales of CDs now. So most people who are music enthusiasts are enjoying music on various formats, but vinyl has certainly made a big comeback. A big part of the vinyl comeback, too, was the introduction of Record Store Day, which happened in 2008. And it's now a major international event. I have attended Record Store Day for many years, and it gets bigger and bigger every year. This year at Encore Records, we were lined up well onto Charles Street before the store even opened.
Absolutely love to hear that. Do you remember the single along the way, Brian, where you could buy a single song, much like a 45 with an A and B side, but you could just buy a single song on cassette?
Yep, they launched that in the early 80s, kind of in an effort to replace the 45, give people an opportunity to have a single played on a portable thing. Of course, that's when the Walkman was making its biggest marketing thing, where people were listening to music on headsets through their Walkman. So, yeah, lasted a little while, but didn't do all that well. But, I mean, it was an affordable way to get that one song if you really wanted to to have it and not shell out for the entire album.
Absolutely. Okay, it was this week in 1965, and one of the best from one of the best. The Poet records Like a Rolling Stone.
Yeah, actually, June 16th, 1965, Bob Dylan recorded Like a Rolling Stone at Columbia Recording Studios in New York City. And this was in the session for the forthcoming Highway 61 Revisited album that he was in the process of finishing. Some of the session musicians included Mike Bloomfield and Al Cooper, and that famous organ piece that's sort of central to Like a Rolling Stone, that was done by Al Cooper in the studio, and it was done on a whim, too. It wasn't something that was planned. It just sort of, Al was there and said, hey, maybe I could add some organ to your piece here, and lo and behold, it became this great piece of music. Of course, Like a Rolling Stone, it would inspire many more musicians. Again, Rolling Stone magazine crediting the song for inspiring the title of their publication, which was launched in 1967. And then you've got artists right across the board saying, this really turned their heads in terms of what music could be. You got John Lennon and Paul McCartney, Bowie, Mick Jagger, Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, Patti Smith, all Bono, all have stated that the song had a major impact on them as songwriters. So couldn't get much bigger than Like a Rolling Stone back in 1965.
Well, and speaking of big impacts, this week in 1971, Carole King with what we now all recognize as an all-time classic.
June 17th, 71, yeah. This is when Carole King began a record-breaking 15-week run at the top of the U.S. album chart with Tapestry, which was just a massive record. So it was, it remained on Billboard for nearly 6 years, which shows you the impact that it had and the sales that it did. And it really marked a significant shift for Carole King. She'd spent, the first decade of her career behind the scenes as a songwriter for other artists with her then husband, Jerry Goffin. And then she decided she was going to step out from behind the curtain and be a performer in her own right. And Tapestry came out, and of course it featured chart-topping singles like It's Too Late, I Feel the Earth Move. She also recorded You've Got a Friend, which became a number one hit for James Taylor. Just an incredible record. And, it's since won all kinds of awards. It won multiple Grammys. And it was one of the first 50 titles that was added when they created the National Recording Registry in 2003. Tapestry was one of the first records that they tapped and said, this one we definitely have to preserve. So hats off to Carole King. What a great, amazing record that was and still is to this day.
No question about it. So influential this week in 1971. And wouldn't you know, what a coincidence, almost 45 years later, and you mentioned the name Jerry Goffin, Carole King's husband. This week in 2014, we lose Jerry.
Sadly, Jerry passed away in 2014. But, you just can't undermine how much work and what this couple and Jerry Goffin contributed to songwriting. 10 songs with Carole King for all of those years. And over 2 decades, they had so many massive hits. You go to songs, groundbreaking songs like The Locomotion for Little Eva. You've got Will You Love Me Tomorrow from the Shirelles. One Fine Day for the Chiffons. Pleasant Valley Sunday for the Monkees, one of my earliest memories. Just a whole list of songs. Now, Jerry and Carole divorced in 1968, but Jerry continued to be a songwriter. And he was still writing hit singles up until the 1980s. He wrote Saving All My Love for You, which was a number one hit for Whitney Houston. So it was just an incredible partnership. They wrote more than 100 songs that charted. Many of them were chart toppers. And Jerry was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1987. So it was really sad to lose him in 2014, but what a body of work he left behind.
No question about it. And inducted into that Songwriters Hall of Fame, as Brian mentions, in 1987. Let's focus on those 1980s. And why the heck was Billy Joel so upset when he recorded It's Still Rock and Roll to Me? We'll get into that story and more as we continue this week in music history with musicologist Brian Allison here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Monday morning after the 11 a.m. news, we take a look at this week in music history. And guiding us on this weekly journey is musicologist Brian Allison, who also runs a Facebook page by the same name, This Week in Music History. So you'll be able to read the tidbits that you hear here on the show and lots more on Facebook, This Week in Music History. But we continue the conversation this week. And we started the show this morning, Brian, with Billy Joel, and It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, which is historic this week in 1980.
Yeah, it was June 14th, 1980, when this was Billy Joel's 7th studio album, Glass Houses, began a 6-week run atop the Billboard 200 in the #1 spot. And, of course, as you pointed out, it fueled the hit, It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, which was also a #1 hit, would earn him a Grammy nomination for Record of the Year and Best Male Vocalist. So that was a huge song back in 1980. Still love it to this day. I really enjoy Billy Joel's Glass Houses. Great album. Some trivia around it. When it first came out, some people thought that Billy Joel was complaining about the state of music, that he was putting down, the new style, a new wave, punk, that sort of thing. And that wasn't the case. It was really his own commentary on the state of rock and roll as the 1980s took hold. As an artist, he was constantly being told that his music and his look even needed to evolve if he wanted to stay relevant. And he was saying, you know what, I'm not criticizing this new wave of music. I'm just saying that there's room for everyone. And regardless of styles and trends and what people's hairstyles look like, rock and roll is going to endure. It's going to go on. It's still going to be rock and roll. And he was right. Here we are all these years later. How many styles and genres have we seen come and go? And it's still rock and roll.
It certainly is. And, speaking of Billy Joel and commentary through his music, I mean, it was less than a decade later that We Didn't Start the Fire came out, and that was one heck of a commentary on modern times, too. At the time, the modern time.
Absolutely. And wow, I still listen to that song, and I think it borders on genius, the way he was able to string all of those events together into that song. And it's just such an incredible timeline that he was able to do. Just genius songwriting.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, also this week in the 1980s, it was actually this day in 1985, a big one from Dire Straits.
Oh, the biggest for Dire Straits. So, yeah, June 15th, 85, they started a 9-week run at the top of the Billboard 200 album charts with Brothers in Arms, which was arguably their greatest and most popular album to date. So this was their 5th studio album. Of course, it featured the #1 U.S. hit, Money for Nothing, which also saw huge success in the UK, Australia. It was a #1 hit. I mean, it was just globally huge. And a lot of it was that music video for Money for Nothing and, the I Want My MTV phrase that was so inserted into the song just became such a catchphrase for the time. It's still one of the world's best-selling albums to this day. And the interesting thing about it was one of the first blockbuster albums of the CD era. So the album's length was tailored to take advantage of the compact disc longer playing time. You could get a little more music onto a CD than you could an album. And as soon as it was released, retailers saw these huge spikes in CD players because fans went out and bought the CD, Brothers in Arms, and bought a new CD player to go with it so they could experience it on this great new format. So, yeah, Dire Straits having a great album and also selling a lot of CD players.
Well, taking advantage of that extra playing time on the CD. I mean, I think they used most of it just on the build-up for Money for Nothing. Is there a slower build to a song anywhere than that particular song? It must go on for almost 90 seconds of when I listen to it on my playlist, I'm like, is the playlist still playing or did it go off?
But it's a pretty awesome build, isn't it?
Oh, it's great.
I mean,
it is.
It is long. It is a little bit long in the tooth, and but when you hear it in its full bombast on a really decent stereo, it's like, wow, what a great intro.
That's a great point. And I also noticed yesterday when that song did come up on my playlist, I guess I have the original, not the edited or clean version of it. And it's still rather jarring, Brian, to hear them sing about that little so-and-so that has the earring or his own jet airplane and that little so-and-so who's a millionaire.
With the earring and the makeup. Well, yeah. And Mark Knopfler's been asked about that countless times, and he said, look, that wasn't my perspective. This whole song basically came from him overhearing a conversation between two guys who were moving appliances. And they were basically saying, these rock stars today, they're spoiled. They get all this money for nothing, and, making some fairly rude comments about their orientation and whatnot, but that they're all millionaires and we're stuck here moving these TV sets. So it was more of a bird's eye view of some other conversation, not Mark's own thoughts, of course.
Of course. Okay, let's fast forward to this century, in fact, and this week in the year 2000, a pretty nice, royalty check or some back pay for the Ronettes.
Well, it was definitely back pay. So it was June 20th, 2020. The Ronettes had been in court trying to recoup some back earnings from their past producer, Phil Spector. And on this day, they were awarded $2.6 million in back earnings. So a New York judge ruled that the legendary producer had cheated them out of millions of royalties since the mid-1960s when he produced all kinds of hits for them. Some trivia about it. They were formed as a family act in the early 60s, the Ronettes. They consisted of two sisters and one cousin. And, they made a major impact on popular music by the late 60s. They started to break down, infighting, competition from other female groups like the Supremes, saw their popularity waning. And then you've got lead singer Ronnie Spector, who was married to Phil Spector, who was a terribly abusive man. Refused to let his wife leave the home, even to perform. In fact, the Ronettes were supposed to open for the Beatles in North America on their 1966 tour, and Phil Spector said that Ronnie could not be part of that tour. He did not want her to leave the house, and basically had her, omitted from that whole situation. So it was a sad state of affairs. By 1972, Ronnie Spector fled Phil Spector literally barefoot and penniless in the middle of the night, claiming that she had been abused and tortured by him for years. And of course, Phil Spector would end up in prison in 2009 following the murder of Lana Turner. So, yeah, I've said it many, many times when you hear the Phil Spector story and the Ronnie Spector story and the story of the Ronettes, it's like, where's the biographic film of this? Netflix should be all over it because it would make an incredible series.
Would it ever? Okay, before I let you go this week, Brian, I mentioned at the beginning, we get a lot of feedback for this particular segment. I know our listeners enjoy it, and I understand why. Big music fans here on the show. And I think that we're due, and it's been asked before, to have like an in-studio appearance from you, if you can make it work. And we'll keep the phone lines open, and maybe folks want to call and ask some questions. But I'm thinking we're coming close to Canada Day. So if we use 2 weeks from today, Monday the 29th, and maybe bring you in for a This Week in Music History kind of Canadian special, or just talk some Canadian music on that day, and maybe folks want to call in and have you in studio. What do you think?
I love it. All Canadian, call in. We can talk about our favorite Canadian bands. I mean, that would be great. I would love it.
Okay, so 2 weeks from today on the 29th, we're going to bring you in studio for This Week in Music History. Deal?
Deal. I'm there.
You're the best, buddy. Thanks for this, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, you have a great day, Mike.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Brian Allison is a musicologist, joins us on Mondays at 11 for This Week in Music History. Remember the Facebook page of the same name. Just find it on Facebook at This Week in Music History, the tidbits we talk about and more stories that Brian posts there. And because I know you enjoy his time on the show so much, we're going to bring him in studio with us 2 weeks from today on the 29th, and we'll make it an all-Canadian Music History Week and have a conversation with Brian about our favorite Canadian bands and some other Canadian music stuff. And we'll keep the phone lines open if you just want to join the conversation about Canadian music when Brian Allison, our musicologist, joins us in studio for this segment 2 weeks from today on Monday, June the 29th. Deal? Okay. I'm glad we made a deal on that. Something else I always do at this time, since we're talking music, let's lay out the theme for this week's All Request Friday. We are going to be moving into the summer time, right? Because June the 21st will mark the beginning of summer, but that's too easy, and we've done that before. We'll tie it in, though, to something in the news I think they're connected. Let's remind our local politicians that we're paying attention to the water issue here. So it ties into summer too, beaches, water, stuff like that. But your theme for All Request Friday this week is water. Find the song that best fits the theme to your ears, and we'll play it for you on All Request Friday, songs about water. Just to remind those elected in this community that, yeah, we like our music and we're paying attention to the news as well. Send me your requests via email to mike@570news.com or give Jen a call. Let her know the song about water that you would like to hear on All Request Friday this week. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? I haven't seen hide nor shaggy head of that boy in 4 years, but you'd know him if you met him. Played harmonica like the cat lost his balls. Yep, Crazy Dave. Had a toothy smile as big as my hand. Always chewed on a toothpick or a long blade of grass, drank from the bottle, rolled the worst cigarettes, was impervious to insect bites. It's one of the best damn tree-planting highballers east of Prince George.
That would be our good friend, David Drewe. Well, our good friend, Scott Wicken, who performs a spoken word essay called Crazy Dave. Not written because of, but could very well fit David Drewe, our guest every morning, 11:30 here on the program. David is the owner-operator at Negotiating Change, government relations and stakeholder engagement strategies. Should you be in the market for help in those departments, David is also a former Conservative Party staffer, having worked alongside former Kitchener-Conestoga MP Harold Albrecht. David joins us Monday mornings, 11:30 for Drew's Views. I'm always wishing time away when you get here. I don't know why.
Well, what was I can't remember what the name of Karen Coviello's segment was. Municipal Matters? Was
yes,
that it?
That was on Wednesdays. You're right.
That's when you started all of getting the 11:30 Wednesdays for me. So I blame her, not you.
You know what? Karen Coviello, it's your fault.
Yep.
Okay. Consider yourself blamed. I don't know why you want to talk about this, because I find it to be the biggest nothing burger in the history of politics. Apparently, there's a race to be the leader of the next minivan party in Ontario. I just don't I'm trying to find the cachet, David, in the Ontario Liberal leadership race.
Well, me too.
Okay.
Like, to be fair, me too. There are those who are framing it as the last hope for the progressive wing of the Liberal Party, because Mark Carney has so thoroughly killed it federally, shall we say.
Sure.
I was going to come for a more graphic metaphor, but let's just leave it there. From carbon tax to capital gains to culture taxes on American streaming platforms, it's all been pulled back. All of it. Stephen Guilbeault, it's the caucus that can handle Marilyn Gladue, but not Stephen Guilbeault. You know what I mean? The tent is only so big.
That's a very good point.
So there's, for me, it's a good giggly point. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, for me, it's a good giggly point, because if you're the person who's been loving this party through both phases, you got to ask yourself what it is you're loving. But anyway, if you're one of those progressive liberals, this is a legitimate concern for you. So in some ways, this Ontario Liberal race is being viewed as the last hope for the progressives. And so then cue this housing advocate named Eric Lombardi. And I swear to God, he is a troll. He is a real candidate, kind of, but he's really just in it to show what it means to be a progressive liberal in this, just by coming out and saying, this is what I'm in favor of and this is why. And all the progressive sides are getting so crazy at him that it's now down to, if Eric Lombardi wins, this is the end of the progressive liberals in Canada. And I am just loving this, because I have never heard of this guy. The first thing I ever heard about him was that apparently he's really, really well loved by conservatives for some reason. And then I started seeing what he was saying, and I'm like, well, this is why. This is why. But he's doing a really good job at snapping up attention and keeping the debate focused on these issues. And he's really upsetting a lot of people that I like to see upset. So I'm having fun too.
People that you like to see upset, like really progressive liberals?
Yes.
Yeah.
The ones who are saying that the views they hold now were un-Canadian 6 years ago. Those liberals.
Right.
Like, you know, I'm enjoying them being uncomfortable.
Okay, the Ontario Liberal leadership race. Let's go from provincial Liberals to at least former federal Liberals. And I mentioned this to one of my earlier guests today when they were in studio. And why do we make such a fuss? You're not the prime minister anymore. You can watch a soccer match in LA, can't you?
Well, it really only grabbed my thing because he used the phrase boyfriendly duties. The same week that Chrystia Freeland's Unreliable Boyfriend book was announced and previewed. And I just sort of like, you know, given the relationship between the two of them, my first assumption was that her book, Unreliable Boyfriend, was about her exit from cabinet. It's not. It's about Canada's relationship with the U.S., to be fair. But just the confluence of the two, my first assumption was, oh, he's doing boyfriendly duties. She's coming out with a book called Unreliable Boyfriend. Oh, wow. She's going to give us the dirt on her exit from cabinet. That's really just where my head went. So, yeah, I actually did post a Justin Trudeau video last week on my Facebook feed.
Did you? I missed it. Why did you do that? Did you post a video of him at the soccer match in LA or at the concert?
No, neither. It was just he and Katy Perry alone in a limo talking about apparently she has different kinds of fans who have different nicknames. And they were having this discussion about what type of those fans he would be or what category he would fall into. And he's sitting there and you'd swear he was delivering an apology for residential school grades with all the drama. He's saying, well, I guess I'm a Perry cat then. And so, yeah, I shared the video. I'm like, yeah, people thought this guy could be prime minister. Like that. So that was the video I shared. But yeah, so he grabbed my attention with just, oh, he's down there, not up here. Well, I don't really care.
I don't care either. Why do we care about any of this anymore? Why? Just let it go.
Well, no, but
why are we seeing videos of him in a limo with Katy Perry? Why?
Because there is an audience for people who still want to hate him. And to be fair, I also think Mark Carney's probably putting some money into promoting these videos just to remind Canadians of the change that we can enjoy. I'm only being half laughing when I say that because I think when Justin Trudeau comes out and talks, we are still at the point where it's like, oh yeah, thank God we got Carney now. Like I still think he has that effect on us.
All right, let's bring it back to provincial politics and Premier Doug Ford. The polling numbers, David Drewe, do not look great, to put it mildly, for Premier Ford.
Yeah. And I think I phrase this as, should the Tories be worried about it? And I think my answer is kind of no. I really do think it's kind of no, because we were at that point where we were just talking about the leaderless Liberal Party, so everybody's able to write their ideal archetype as Liberal leader and say that's who I'm going to be putting up against Ford, not Eric Lombardi, who would probably be comfortable in Ford's caucus. So, you know, if if polls mid-mandate mattered, Ed Broadbent would have been Canada's longest-serving prime minister. But that's where we are now. We are so far away from making a decision on anything. The problem is, if you take that attitude for granted, it's very easy for these opinions to ossify. And instead of being fluid, where it's just sort of like, I'm going to vote for that guy over there right now, it does become throw the bums out because you are not paying attention to it. So it's something you got to pay attention to. But don't worry about it. This is not like throw the leader overboard territory. It's well, what are we going to do about it? Not, oh my God, what are we going to do about it? But it's, okay, boss, what are we going to do about it? It's a reasonable question to be asking. This is a normal-ish place to be, but it's also an easy place to get trapped in.
A normal-ish place to be because it's been so long already, right? 2017 is when Doug Ford became premier. And I think the advantage that he has right now is that of time. we're just under 3 years away from an election.
Yeah, experience is the biggest advantage in the world for a politician until it becomes the biggest anchor on them. But I think it's at that point because not just because we're 10 years in, but also because we're right at that midpoint between elections.
Yes.
So it's just so easy because you're not actually thinking about who am I going to vote for. It's the novel concept, which always beware the novel concept in polling because people haven't thought through the consequences. So it's really easy just to go anybody but the bums in there right now when you're 2 years away from actually having to make a decision.
And let's be honest, the track record has been far from stellar. He is just taking one misstep after another.
I'm trying to figure out what we can actually brag about if I'm him. Like, what is the re-election record? But also, Corey Tenike's coming back after the BC leadership race, so, I don't think he would have let anybody buy a plane. No, but there is that possibility just right there, these little, because none of these were major government policy issues. They were all stupid little loan errors. And so, maybe if you just have that person back who goes, don't be an idiot, boss, and he's somebody that the boss will listen to, that might be all it takes.
David Drewe joins us Monday mornings at 11:30 to share with us his views. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre granted an audience with Alberta separatists, not your everyday UFC event, and something David says we need to rehash again. It'll be worth it as we continue Drew's views this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a Monday morning, and every Monday morning at this time, we are joined in studio by our friend David Drewe, a former Conservative Party staffer, who joins us to share his views on all things political. Conservative leader federally, you were working within the party when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. The leader today is Pierre Poilievre, and he has had a conversation with separatists in Alberta.
Well, he gave a speech in Alberta on Alberta separatism, and he had a very specific audience. It was the Albertans who are considering leaving Canada. And I have yet to hear from our mainstream media any knowledge of how that audience reacted to his speech. But I do know how Chantal Hébert felt about it. I do know how Andrew Coyne felt about it. And I was just sitting there and I was so resentful. Here I am, a guy who just wants to know what's going on and pays attention to this and cares about it. And, every now and then I get on the radio with you and I yip about things like this. I'd really like to know how this speech went over, and I'm more interested in that than whether it's going to win him votes in the next election or why he was saying things a certain way. And did he prosecute Mark Carney too much? And it's like, yes, that is a very, very Ottawa lens on a conversation that is mainly about Ottawa doesn't listen to Alberta enough. And I was just sitting there thinking, well, this is the problem right here. I have no idea. Well, remember we listened to the West of Center podcast in preparation for last week's show. I found that amazing because I actually understood concerns and stuff like that. I would love to hear those people's reactions to Pierre Poilievre's speech. I would love to hear Albertans who are sensitive or considering that we're going to vote strategically just to have leverage like Quebec would, how they reacted to it. But our media doesn't do that. Instead, they give us analysis from an Ottawa perspective on what was right or wrong about it, totally ignoring Ottawa was not the audience. So I was a bit frustrated.
So you heard from Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj wasn't on the at-issue panel that week?
She was there as well, but that, to be fair, I just started listing off that panel off the top of my head, but it was pretty much all of the daily 5 o'clock shows as well. It was very, very hard to find an Albertan talking about how Albertans were reacting to it on all of these things. It was all the usual suspects that would be there if we were talking about Parliament Hill being prorogued.
I will confess, David, that I was once a fan of the sweet science of boxing. I would call it its heyday back in the 1980s. Sugar Ray Leonard, Leon Spinks, Muhammad Ali. Not Larry Holmes was there in the 80s. Anyway, I bring this up because try as I might, I can find no patience nor appetite for mixed martial arts and these nonsensical octagonal battles. Anyway, blah, blah. They're doing one on the White House lawn when? What?
Last night.
Oh, really? Okay, I missed it. Shucks.
Well, it nearly didn't happen. The Weather Network was tweeting out stuff, and it's like, okay, so 50-mile-an-hour gusts, mosquitoes, and excessive humidity. But
how is this even a thing, though? How does an event like this happen on the grounds of the White House?
Well, every emperor wants their Colosseum, Mike.
Thank you, David.
Bread and circuses. This is what I call this segment. Bread and circuses, but not bread, because inflation has made... We've had inflation issues in Canada. It's hitting the U.S. so much worse than it is in Canada because they are more vulnerable to Strait of Hormuz imports. So they are having real affordability issues, whereas we were going through... They're having real inflation issues, which is leading to fresh affordability issues. We still have the affordability issues, but the inflation aggravating it underneath is gone. So they don't have the bread. They just have the circuses. But that's all he can provide. It's not hard to document or to find documentation of the way the MMA has become a right-wing Republican MAGA institution. And there's an actual romantic way and sociological way to explain the codependency of the relationship. But the idea of this actually happening on the White House lawn on the president's birthday. And by the way, I do believe that if you wanted to watch it, it was pay-per-view. Like, it was on the White House lawn, but you had to shell out $30 to watch the president's birthday party. So to come back and answer the question, Mike, I have no idea how this happens.
Only in America in 2026. That's how.
Well, that's just it. When he was starting to do the military parade thing, it was all the people noticing the only people who generally do parades are dictatorships because they're weak and afraid and they need to be showing power. I'm just waiting to hear that apparently Trump during the last match got up and started fiddling. Like, that's all I was waiting for.
Okay, before I let you go, let me just ask you about this last topic this way. Didn't we already do that?
Yeah. So starting today, military police will no longer accept criminal code sexual offense complaints.
Didn't we already do that?
That's what I thought. We had 2 different Supreme Court justices. The most recent one in 2019 recommending this. Okay, but here, let me finish the sentence that I started reading, though. No longer accept criminal code sexual offense complaints in anticipation of passage of the Liberal government's military justice reform bill.
7 years later.
Yeah, 7 years later, but also they're jumping the gun, kind of. Like, it's not the law yet, but they're just getting ahead of it. Like, 7 years later. And to be fair, Mark Carney's only been around for one of those years. It was the previous feminist prime minister who kept letting this fall off the table. So yeah, when I saw that headline, I was like, again? But no, this is like we're just getting around to it from 2019. And it's not like, you're setting up a new police force or anything. It's just a change of who investigates what. You don't need to set up new resources. You don't need to do anything. And remember when apparently the treatment or the sexual abuse of women in the military was a kind of a big deal? Apparently not, Mike.
Well, this is the thing, David, and no wonder they're getting ahead of it, because clearly we know there's a problem here, but you are...
But if you're the guy responsible for the military police, don't you think you would have loved to offloaded this responsibility a while ago because you know the stink pile you've inherited and
Absolutely.
You would welcome the outside accountability?
Absolutely.
So you know what I mean? So as much as let's not blame the military here. Let's put it back to the people who tell the military what to do.
But you are hitting on one of my greatest frustrations with government in this country at all levels, period. And that is the bureaucratic inertia we've created.
But also, remember superclusters?
Oh, gosh. Don't bring up the supercluster. We had one.
But you see, you understand the parallel here, eh? We really, really believed that the military was no longer investigating sexual assaults because the government had talked about these recommendations so much that we actually believed they might have done something about them. In the other case, it's kind of the opposite.
So we don't have a supercluster, right? Waterloo Region was going to have a supercluster.
Well, Waterloo Region, Greater Toronto, it was bigger than just us.
Of course. It's a supercluster. It can't just be us.
Well, yeah. And put it this way, money was spent.
Of course it was.
I'm looking around this cluster. Don't look any more super than it used to.
David Drewe is as super as he always is. Joins us Monday mornings, 11:30 to share his views on the show. Good to see you. Thank you.
Have a great day, sir.
You too, my friend. An update from the 570 News Center on the way, and then your rants, your raves, open lines next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yaggity yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
On Mondays, your Talkback Hour is reserved for your rants and or your raves. You rant because something's got you upset. You rave because on this beautiful, sunny Monday afternoon, you are a-smiling. You can rant or rave by making a call to the same number. Get it off your chest and onto the air at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. We'll get right to the phones because they're lighting up already. We like it this way. Sean will go first. Farwell's Force, member number 165. Good afternoon, Sean.
Good afternoon, and what a beautiful afternoon it is.
Indeed it is.
Anyway, listening to Mr. Drewe, my observations here, like Doug Ford. Now, he is so lucky right now that he's got no effective opposition. The Liberal Party is a disaster. He needs to get it together and stop digging holes under stuff and making unforced errors before somebody gets it together to effectively oppose him. I was thinking maybe it's time he might want to start thinking about dynasty for the PCs, and they need to start grooming a successor. I mean, it's halfway through this election cycle, so maybe it's time for him to think about that, like the future.
Listen, Sean, I hear you. Maybe. I'm not sure that's on Premier Ford's bingo card, and as David Drewe said in the last half hour, it's not as though somebody is screaming that there's a real problem here. It's just like, hey, we might want to check in on this. And let's not get too far ahead of ourselves about being halfway through the election cycle. We are into the second year, but the election happened in 2025, right? Unless I missed it. So it's only a year and a bit, not quite a year and a half into a 4-year term. So not quite halfway yet. Although by the time they get their arses back from summer recess in October, it'll be a lot closer. But 2029 is the next provincial election. It is a ways off, and maybe that's part of what's weighing on their minds, too. Kyle is next on Rant or Rave, Farwell's Force member number 6. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Good afternoon. Well, as you know, I'm a big motorsport fan, and over the weekend, it was a 24-hour race, the Le Mans, and as you know, motorsports has done a lot of good things for the consumer cars. They brought in ABS brakes. We put them in our cars now, traction control, stability control, turbocharging, paddle shifting, all the good stuff that we see in our cars today. And Toyota, on the weekend, on Friday, during practice, they're telling the world that they're pushing hydrogen power. And they brought in their prototype race car because they're showing the world that it's not just electricity that we need to push, but there's also hydrogen power. And next year, I'm hoping that we're going to see the very first hydrogen power race car in motorsports. And I'm very excited because that's another innovation that we could possibly see in our day-to-day driving habits of not just electricity, but putting hydrogen in our cars. So I thought I'd give a big rave to that there, Mike. What a race weekend. My team, Ferrari, didn't win, but another exciting race weekend, 24-hour Le Mans, loved it. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Toyota because they're really pushing this hydrogen power to the world. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Kyle, appreciate the call. Love getting a shout out to Toyota, one of our great corporate partners and largest employers here in the region of Waterloo. And I've heard a lot about hydrogen as sort of running along parallel lines as far as new technology for automobiles goes versus electric, as an example. So there you go. Thanks for that, Kyle. I didn't pay attention to motorsports on the weekend, but love to hear your rave about that. From two Farwell's Force members to a third, Preston Paul, Farwell's Force, member number 45. Good afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon, Mike. Did you have a good weekend?
I had a fantastic weekend, my friend. How about you?
Oh, it was pretty good. It was like Jekyll and Hyde. Saturday was perfect. Sunday, the plants loved it.
You know, I don't know about you, but on Saturday, I made a whole lot of hay outdoors getting stuff done so that the plants could enjoy it on Sunday.
Oh, right on.
Yes, sir.
Good. So you're talking about doing that music show 2 weeks from now. I hope you can stretch that into an hour because that half an hour just goes way too fast. It really does, you know. And I was sitting out here and finally warmed up. So I just sitting out in the sun, listening to the show, what I've been dreaming about for that rotten winter that we had. So looking forward to the rest of the week anyways.
Good stuff, Paul. Good to hear from you today, too. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Mike. Talk to you later, bud.
All right, buddy. Listen, it was a little chilly this morning. I will not tell a lie because I will never tell you a lie. Seat heaters. I put the seat heaters on this morning. It was cold when I came to work. 8 ding-dang degrees. What in HE double hockey sticks is that? 8 degrees on a June morning. I go outside in a T-shirt. Same thing happened last night after dinner. I said to my beloved, Rosie the pandemic pup and I are going out for a walk. I looked at my phone. My app said it was 16 degrees. I said, am I chancing 16 degrees in just a T-shirt? I walked outside in just a T-shirt. I turned right back around and came in. Not only was it cold and cloudy and windy, but it was raining a little bit still, so I threw on a coat. In fairness, by the end of the walk, because we went a pretty good hike last night after dinner, Rosie and I had taken off the coat because it was getting a little warm. The sun came out a little bit, but it was a little cooler than I would have liked this morning. That is for sure. A real quick note, because we went from Farwell's Forest member number 165 with Sean to number 6 with Kyle to number 45 with Preston Paul. If you're wondering what this is all about and you want to be a part of it, you know that you can, right? We are always recruiting new members of Farwell's Force, and the only thing you have to do to become a member of Farwell's Force in good standing is listen to the show for 15 minutes. You got to listen for 15 minutes every day, but you do that, and we welcome you to our growing force. Just last week, we added Lori and Tanya and Barry and Terry to Farwell's Force, numbers 384 through 387. We'd love to have you on board. We are a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. And again, I will not tell you a lie. Wouldn't it be great? I think it would be great if we got to 500 plus members. So if you'd like to become a member and you listen for 15 minutes every day, we're happy to assign you a number. Just drop me an email, mike@570news.com, or give me a call right now and tell me, hey, get me on the force for good. We will gladly include you with our group. Francis is next on Rant or Rave. Another Farwell's Force member, number 36. Hello, Francis.
Hello, and you're right on the button. I had a wonderful Saturday. We celebrated, sorry to say, but CKNX up in Wingham, and we celebrated that going through the station, how everything was produced. And the TV radio tower is just outside of God's country called Formosa. And I learned a lot about the AM, how it goes underground, and a lot about the FM, how it goes through its signal. So I learned a whole lot, and it sure brought back a lot of memories of hee-haw and all that kind of stuff. God bless.
Thank you, Francis. I appreciate the call. You go ahead and invoke the call letters of another radio station on this radio station. You do that, especially when it's the legendary CKNX. When I was a kid and we would cottage in Port Elgin, that was the main stick. That's what we call it in the broadcasting industry, the stick, the transmitter that would bring us television coverage up to the cottage. And of course, we could get the sound of those radio stations out of Wingham to our place in Port Elgin. But listen, I am a radio geek as far as the day is long, and I love hearing about all of those things. I actually saw another friend had posted on social media this past weekend of a reunion of old CKCO TV types. And I'm not talking CTV Kitchener. I know it's the same thing, but CKCO TV was the original. It's kind of like saying this station is 570 News Radio when way back when it was 570 Chime, one of the heritage signals in this market before we went from AM to FM and Chime 96.7. And that's where Chime lies now. The FM band became the bigger, better band for radio, but we're still chugging along here on 570 AM. Anyway, looking at my friend's post with those old CKCO TV employees and some of the faces that I remember from being a kid and watching Channel 12 here in town. Lots of fun. So I've always got time for memories like that, and I'm glad you enjoyed your time, Francis, up in God's country, Formosa. You know, they make some beer up there. At least they did, Formosa Springs. Nothing wrong with that from where I'm sitting. It's your rant or rave talkback hour. Get it off your chest and onto the air with us today on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, we set aside your talkback hour so that it's reserved for your rants and or your raves. Rant because you're upset about something. Rave because you're feeling just fine. You can do either of those things. Sing someone's or something's praises or shake your fist at a cloud by making one phone call to us at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. You know, it's interesting. I would have thought going into the weekend, one of the bigger themes we would have to discuss today was the fact that the world now has its very first trillionaire. Congratulations, do we say that, to Elon Musk for becoming said trillionaire? Just to put that into perspective for you, that is 1,000 billions. Elon Musk could give $1 billion to 999 different people and still have $1 billion for himself. Now, I know that $1 billion ain't what it used to be, but I remember a long time ago, I was working at a radio station in Thunder Bay. It's the second time today I've made reference to working in Thunder Bay. And that is close to, or one of the cities that you would go visit if you were leaving Thunder Bay was Minneapolis. You'd go over to Minnesota State or drive to Winnipeg, but they were about the same distance away from Thunder Bay. So there was a big Powerball lottery in the States, and a lot of people from Thunder Bay were making the trip of several hours into Minnesota State to buy Powerball lottery tickets. And the jackpot was approaching $1 billion. And one of my coworkers and I got to talking about a lottery with a jackpot of that size. And I said to him, like, what would you ever do with $1 billion? You couldn't even spend it. He said, oh, sure I could. So I got him to start listing off the things that he would buy with his $1 billion. And he, picked out all the usual things, right? The big houses, the exotic sports cars, this, that, the other thing. And, I did a kind of rough tally. I said, okay, you've spent about $100 million. You've got $900 million left. Like, my goodness gracious, what are you going to do with all of that money? And again, I know $1 billion ain't what it used to be, but $1 trillion, $1 trillion. And it's worth noting, I think we understand, that it doesn't mean that Elon Musk has $1 trillion in his bank account right now. It's not liquid, if you will. But I suppose if he were to sell all of his shares in all of the things and cash in all of those different chips, it would amount to $1 trillion. And the question was being asked as this happened last Friday with the initial public offering on the stock market, the IPO of SpaceX, and it went up about 18%, I think it was, almost 20% on its first day. And that's what turned Elon Musk, at least on paper, into a trillionaire. And the question being asked was whether or not this is a good thing for capitalism, or if the ism that we live by here has some way, somehow jumped the proverbial shark. I mean, does one person really need the $1 trillion or the 1,000 billions or the, 10,000 millions? Does one person need all of those things? Well, anyway. No, it's 1,000 millions, isn't it? No, it's 1,000 billions, yeah. Anyway, just keep going from there. It's a whole lot of money for one person. And I understand the argument from people who are very much pro-capitalist. You've created something that the world needs, i.e. Teslas and electric vehicle technology, etc., the SpaceX program and the exploration that it will bring, this, that, and the other thing. You've created jobs. You've put money into people's pockets as well. But $1 trillion for one person, that is an awful lot. And then, of course, we had the weekend that came about, and I guess still on the lighter side of things, unless you're like me and a Leafs fan. I don't know if there's any light side to watching the Carolina Hurricanes win another Stanley Cup, because now they've won 2 in 20 years, when Leafs fans like me are still waiting for the first Stanley Cup championship in our lifetimes. It's been 59 years for the Maple Leafs, despite all of the resources that they have available to them. And that was the other time earlier today that I was bringing up my time in Thunder Bay, because when I was working there back in the late 1990s, I had almost given up on the Leafs. And I remember my walk to work one day, and I was saying to myself, that's it. Unless the Leafs do something in this offseason leading into the 98-99 NHL season, I said, I'm not going to cheer for them anymore. They don't seem to care. Why should I care? And then I got to work that day, and I saw on the newswire that the Leafs had signed Curtis Joseph as a free agent goalie. I thought, there's my sign. The Leafs are doing something, and I've stuck with them ever since. But when I almost gave up on them that day back in 1998, I said, you know what team I'm going to jump on board with? The Carolina Hurricanes. They're a new-ish expansion kind of team. I'm jumping on the Hurricanes bandwagon. And if I had done that, I would have been part of a Stanley Cup team. I would have cheered a Stanley Cup championship in 2006. And again, just last night, the Carolina Hurricanes and former Maple Leafs goaltender, I might add, Freddie Anderson. Imagine that. At least Mitch Marner, the former Leaf, and the Vegas Golden Knights lost, right? That's what I'm trying to do so I can sleep again tonight. But Carolina Hurricanes, Stanley Cup champions. So there you go. Back to the phones here, rant or rave with our buddy Phil from Stratford, Farwell's Force, member number 81. Good to see you on Friday, Phil.
Yeah, what an excellent venue, and it was like old home week. I got to see like Vince Denemy and a few other characters.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I was in the North Ward that Friday, and I'm driving around like Guelph, DK, Radar, and I'm seeing all these banners of the Kitchener Rangers Shield on front doors and fences and everything. And I'm going, what's that all about? And then it hit me. Back in March, they supported that 9-year-old, what's his name? Harrison Yoshi.
Harrison Yoshi, yeah.
With the brain cancer diagnosis. And like, I thought, wow, this neighborhood's alive with his supporting his cause. I thought, wow, what a great community and cause.
It certainly is. The North Ward churned out a few good fellas, didn't it?
Yes. We didn't all run away from the cops and get caught.
No comment, Phil. No comment.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the call. Good to hear from you today. Phil is a former North Warder, as am I. And look, again, just to be honest with you, I lean on my North Ward roots for the credibility. It's the family specifically. I was only there till I was 6 years old. So, I mean, I was born in the North Ward. I existed and played. I can still talk about the old Ontario Dye Company, Mount Hope Cemetery, Sacred Heart School, where I started, the train tracks down running along Rogers Street and Wilhelm, where we used to play and put coins on the tracks. I did those things up until I was 6. But my more formative years were in another part of the city. But the North Ward's got something about it, you know? And it came up again on Friday afternoon after Phil and I were at that same event together at the Navy Club in Waterloo, celebrating the history of fastball in this community. After that event, I went to visit a fellow by the name of Ron Zamia. I just had met him. It was an opportunity presented me for Farwell for Hire because Ron's a big fan of the show. Bless your heart, Ron. And Ron's a former North Warder as well. And we chatted and chatted over coffee and all kinds of stories about the old North Ward. So you see, the street cred that it brings helps out this younger fella every once in a while, as it did over the weekend. Lots of great North Ward stories from the old days in the old neighborhoods in Kitchener. Rant or Rave continues here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just take a quick moment to welcome Pat and Yolette to Farwell's Force. As our force for good, force for change, force to be reckoned with continues to grow in number. Now from 00 George and Mary, who's number 1 on Farwell's Force, number 1 in our hearts as well. We are sequentially numbered all the way up to 389. We've got a bunch of what I like to call randos in there. Gosh, there's got to be 20 or more. So we are over 400, into the 410s to teens here, on our way to reach my personal selfish quest of 500 members of Farwell's Force. Members who listen for 15 minutes every day and are willing to put their names and listenership behind a number in Farwell's Force for Good. You're always welcome to join Yolette and Pat, who just joined now. Send me an email anytime, mike@570news.com, or give us a call and let us know you'd like to be a member because you are a regular and loyal listener to the show. Also received an email from Dave with another great request for this Friday, an all request Friday, as they all are on our show. We'll play little bits of songs after the commercial breaks that you want to hear. This week's theme, just to remind our elected officials in this election year that we are paying attention to the news. Theme is going to be water. It's also summertime coming up on the calendar next weekend, too. So, you know, we can think of the time we'll spend on or near the water, but really it's about reminding our leaders that we're paying attention to the news. So it's going to be an all-request Friday with the water theme. Think of the song that fits the theme for you. Let us know by giving us a call or dropping me an email to mike@570news.com. I was talking just before the news update about some of the big news going into the weekend, which of course was Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire. The Stanley Cup final was going to be contested again, and it turns out the Carolina Hurricanes won it in Game 6 last night, beating the Las Vegas Golden Knights. It was a dominant playoff for the Hurricanes, and they cap it off with their second Stanley Cup in 20 years. Of course, also over the weekend, we continue to deal with the impacts, and I'm thinking of you, Elmira. I really am. It's a small, tight-knit community there, and 5 members of it killed in an awful car crash in Mapleton Township on Saturday evening. And that's a tough one. Or was it Friday evening? Pardon me. But a tough one to take at a rural intersection where there is a stop sign one way, not a four-way stop, but it appears as though, based on the severity of the collision, that somebody missed something out there, and we will await the results of the investigation. But 10 people in one vehicle, and 5 of them children, all killed in that collision. So thoughts certainly with our friends in Elmira and all of those impacted. We're going to have OPP on the show tomorrow to talk a little bit more. It's just a coincidence, and a tragic one at that, but OPP are just out with a new public safety campaign aimed at drivers on rural roads and how important it is to be paying attention for those stop signs, coming to complete stops, making sure the way is clear, all of those different things. So we'll be talking about that on the show tomorrow. And on the Stanley Cup note, I've always had this thing since I was a kid to watch the final game because I wanted to see the cup get hoisted. I'm a little bit older now, and I didn't really care enough about either of the teams to see the cup get awarded last night, so I only stayed up for 2 periods. And I was puttering away on some other work while the game was going on. But just near the end of the second intermission, did you hear this caught my attention, and I just happened to be paying attention to the TV at the time. Kind of a bizarre apology from Ron MacLean at the end of the second intermission last night. If you missed it, here's what he had to say.
I want to address something that I said earlier on the broadcast. It was a bad mistake by me. We had a fun spoof on the movie The Hangover, and I referenced a scene in the movie where the tiger is put to sleep. Mike Tyson's tiger. The keepers of the cup, of course, are asleep in the skit, and I was making this. I used the slang term for the drug, which has far more serious connotations in reality, and I should have made that connection. I did not. As James Baldwin would say, it's the innocence that constitutes the crime. So I know I triggered some people. I know I offended some people with that remark, and I feel very badly for that, and I want to thank you for bringing it to my attention, to our attention. Yeah, very sorry.
Very sorry, says Ron MacLean, a host on Hockey Night in Canada. The term that he had used was roofie, which was used frequently in the movie The Hangover, but why Ron MacLean caught some flack for that last night is because that is a drug that would be used and has been used to sedate women, and then those women would be sexually assaulted. And of course, last night during that Stanley Cup, one of the players involved, the goaltender for the Las Vegas Golden Knights, was one of those players from that infamous Hockey Canada incident in London where 5 players were accused in a sexual assault trial. They were ultimately acquitted. Hart is now in goal for Las Vegas, but he was certainly subjected to a good deal of taunting by opposition fans, and Ron MacLean caught some fire for making reference to a drug that could have been used has been used historically in sexual assaults, and kind of making light of it in the broader context of Carter Hart being on the ice in that Stanley Cup final. This is the world that we're living in. And if I'm just being blunt with you here, I mean, I've always liked Ron MacLean. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just the only one that's tired just a little bit of the overall shtick. Sometimes and it's just, how many puns can you make? Although I find myself turning my share too. So maybe I should, pick my words more carefully in this regard. But maybe it's just time to move on from Ron as well and let somebody else take their turn on the panel with Hockey Night. But nonetheless, I thought it just came out of the blue, and I didn't hear the original reference, but one quick search of social media, and you realized pretty darn quick why Ron MacLean was apologizing. He certainly caught some heat for those comments about roofies last night during the hockey broadcast. Again, this is the world that we live in, where if you are on a live broadcast, what you say will very quickly come back to you if somebody or many somebodies don't like it. Let's quickly get back to the phones here on our Talkback Hour. Rant or rave over to Grant. Good afternoon, Grant.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Knight.
Do you have a Grant rant for us today?
A rave because my income tax guy is going to go way and beyond his work for myself to help me out in filling out those dental forms I can't remember what that dental form is that the government has initiated last year. And so Mr. Simpson is going to, without me flinching, he said, I'm going to do this for you. So Yeah, I really like Joe. Joe runs a very kind, I guess you could say, very kind ship, and he knows of my situation of anxiety, and he's been here numerous times where he'll let me sign my income tax forms, whereas a lot of places you have to come in. So, way to go, Mr. Joe.
Way to go, Mr. Joe. That's, you know what? That sounds like a rave to me. You're singing someone's praises, and that sounds like customer service extraordinaire. Good job by you, Joe. Mark is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mike. I got a question for you, Mike.
Okay.
Who is that guy with the nice blonde hair that brings out the Stanley Cup every year?
Oh, I forget his name. Phil something, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it's Phil, the keeper of the cup.
I don't know. How do I get that job, Mike?
I think it's Phil Pritchard. I don't know how you get... I don't think Phil wants to let it go.
Okay, I know he doesn't. He shines it up, and yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. Anyway, Mike, have a great day.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I mean, would you give up that job if you had it? Presumably, he makes some level of income being the guy that puts on the white gloves and brings out the cup. And yes, Mark likes the flowing blonde locks on Phil Pritchard, a.k.a. the keeper of the cup. Andre is next on Rant or Rave, another Farwell's Force member. 369. Hello, Andre.
Wow, you remember.
I remember. I forget Mark's number. He's one of the early ones, but he never uses his number, so I can't keep it straight.
And Mark's like me. He's so spontaneous. You told me one time that he jumped in front of the bus to get an autograph from you or something like that, right?
Mark is Farwell's Force member number 39. I got him right there. I knew he was one of the early ones. There you go. Yeah, he didn't jump in front of the bus, but when we were getting off the bus, no, we were leaving for a road trip, and he was waiting outside the Odd when we left the bus bay. And he stopped the bus, and I had to get off because he was calling for me. And everybody was waiting then, and I had to get off the bus and sign an autograph for Mark. And let me tell you, when I got back on that bus, Andre, they made fun of me.
Well, of course, that's true love.
Is that what it is? Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was true love, yes.
So I have some rave because, well, for one, of course, you got to stop complaining about the weather because it's pretty much normal now. And for two, I'd like to say we have a great support, again, in our community. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. Kindness free. Have a good one, Mike.
All right, Andre, thank you. Yes, kindness costs you nothing. And, well, we could complain about the weather. I just ran into, during that last commercial break in the news update at 12:30, I ran into one of our managers, and he said it feels like fall outside. So he recommended that we start a radio station somewhere in the Caribbean. I said I would work for free. Could we just keep it consistent is all I'm asking. Did I mention that I put on my seat heaters when I came to work this morning? Maybe that's a me thing, but it was a little chilly out there. Rant or Rave continues on the Mike Farwell Show this afternoon. Phone lines are open to you. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just relating to you, another conversation with a coworker in the hallways of this radio station earlier today. And we were talking about what a week it's been for police stories, including, of course, the loss of OPP Constable Tarun Bali, who was struck by a vehicle, an 18-year-old man in northern Ontario, Hearst, way north Ontario, charged with first-degree murder in connection with that death. But Tarun Bali, a former bylaw officer here in Kitchener. Then we had the Toronto police officer shot last week as well. So 2 deaths. And then how about this story just from today where a 12-year-old boy has been charged with attempted murder after the boy allegedly ran over an officer with a stolen car. The SIU is now investigating because police opened fire in this particular instance as well. But I'm trying to piece together just from the beginning here, 12-year-old boy and stolen car. I mean, I've gotten up to my share of mischief over time. Nothing remotely close to stealing a car or even breaking into a car. I remember stealing a newspaper once. I felt so guilty. I went back the next day and put the money into it was out of one of those boxes that used to have newspapers on street corners. You know the ones? Not the freebies that you can still pick up some places, but used to have newspaper boxes on the side of the street, right? And you could put a coin in, you put your quarter in or your 35 cents, you got a newspaper. And my buddies figured out how to break into this one without paying. So I did one day, and then I felt so guilty the next day I went back and put in the quarter. I didn't take out a paper. So maybe there was some mischief I got into out at the airport. I'm gonna make you wait to hear the rest of that story if you didn't hear it the first time. They're making me pay. I'm paying my debt to the Waterloo Regional Airport Society, okay, later this month as part of my Farwell for Hire duties. So you'll get the full story then. That was probably the most mischief I ever engaged in. But a 12-year-old boy and a stolen car, and now the boy is charged with attempted murder after it's alleged that he directed said stolen car at a police officer. I mean, what a run of stories around policing we have been having. Just utterly incredible stuff. I'll remind you that an OPP sergeant will be on the show with us tomorrow talking about the new public education campaign, safety campaign around rural roads. And while it's not connected to, it's just a coincidence that we just had that tragedy in Mapleton Township. It's probably a timely reminder from provincial police. So that'll come up on the show tomorrow. Back to the phones here on Rant or Rave. Steve, good afternoon.
Good morning. Afternoon, I guess. Yeah, so I've got a couple rants. So I don't know what's going on in this city, but none of it seems to be good. First of all, had to get downtown for an important appointment. And got down there, parked in my usual little one there off of Otto Street, I think, just over the center in the square. And there's a nice little lot in there, usually completely empty. Pulled in to go in there the other day, and it's all toned off. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I look across, and the parking lot across from center in the square, it's bustling with people. A big sign, $12.50 to park. And I asked the woman, I was like, are you telling me I got to pay $12.50 to park to go to an appointment across the street? She's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so how do you justify locking down all the public ones so that you can funnel people in here to overcharge them? Shouldn't they fill up first and then you charge them? And she's like, I don't know, I'm just running this place. And I was just like, this is just so wrong. How is it the city of Kitchener works with the center and the square in order to shut down public parking lots so that they can gouge people $12.50 to park?
Well, there had to be an event going on. There
was 100% an event going on in center in the square, but justify shutting down all the other parking lots which are empty so that you can gouge people to use their parking lot? No, I'm sorry. That's not the way it should work at all.
All right.
It makes me sick.
Okay.
Compounded with the other decision to go with this new company that's doing garbage collection. In my area, we're collected on Friday, and this is the third large item week that we've had and the third large item week that's gone by with no collection. And now my area, once again, looks like a garbage heap with people putting all their items out and no collection again. So I prompted me to call them this morning and say, hey, listen, like, what's going on with this? The third time you've missed the large item collection, no truck came around, and the woman had no idea. She hadn't heard from anybody. And I was like, that's ridiculous. How could you have not heard? Like, how does the region not, are they not aware? I was like, because I used to work for Waste Management. We did regional collection, and it was never an issue. And when something was missed, it was on full blast in the office, but now there's no follow-up.
Well, I guess they need somebody now, hopefully, that you've issued the complaint. Maybe nobody else had.
Oh, I find that hard to believe. The whole area.
I hear you, but I mean, I'm just guessing here. I'm just guessing.
Yeah. It just seems like they've given this new company a hell of a lot of latitude. And I don't know, I can't even say, like, even with the automated systems, than the garbage cans, that it has been entirely as good as it was back when we had guys throwing them on the back of the trucks. But, just really not impressed with the way things are going here on the Civic line. Like, I don't know. Times are tough, and then they go and shut down public parking so they can gouge people, and we've got garbage collection is just not even being done.
Listen, yeah. I hear you, Steve, and we got to run because we're out of time here, but I completely understand the frustration. I just said to my beloved last evening when I went down to add something to the recycling bins that always overflow because they only get picked up every 2 weeks now, I still don't like the new system. I'm with you on that, and I'm glad you took the time to call and get that off your chest, because that's what Rant or Rave is for. And I'm sorry I had to cut it short because we are out of time for the day. But that's why we're here. We can air some grievances and maybe get some remedies, because certainly there is room for improvement on the new waste collection system. That is for sure. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9. You are invited to the conversation then. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.